The deed fell out of Samuel Carter's Bible at 9:17 on the night his family threw Leah out of his house. She knew the time because the red motel clock had been blinking at her while she sat on the bed, still wearing the black dress from the funeral beneath her faded denim jacket. The Bible rested in her lap. When she opened the back cover, something crackled under the worn leather, and a folded sheet slid onto the carpet between her caramel boots. It was thick paper, stamped in blue, with Samuel's name typed across the top. Leah picked it up expecting an old church certificate or one of the hardware receipts he used as bookmarks. Instead, she saw a parcel number, a Washington County recording stamp, and her own full name. Leah Marie Carter. Halfway down the page, beside words she had to read 3 times, was the name Carter Ridge Farm. Her grandfather had died without telling her she had anywhere to go. 6 hours earlier, Aunt Denise had stood beside Samuel's open grave, holding an umbrella against a rain that had already stopped. She kept opening it whenever someone approached, then closing it after they walked away. Leah watched this happen 4 times before she realized Denise needed something to do with her hands. "He looks peaceful," a woman from Samuel's church said. Denise gave a tired smile. "That's all we wanted." Leah looked at the casket and wondered who she meant by we. Samuel had not looked peaceful during his last week. He had looked annoyed. Annoyed at the oxygen tube, at the pills crushed into applesauce, at the way Leah watched his chest when she thought he was sleeping. Even near the end, he would open one eye and mutter, "Quit counting." "I'm not counting." "You're a terrible liar." The memory caught Leah off guard. A sound escaped her, too small to be a laugh, too sharp to pass for a breath. Denise glanced over. She wore a neat black coat and Samuel's displeased expression, although on her it came with lipstick. "Are you all right?" It was the sort of question people asked when they wanted the correct answer. "I'm fine." Denise touched Leah's elbow. For 1 second, the gesture felt almost maternal. Then she smoothed the sleeve of Leah's black dress, as if correcting a wrinkle. "You should have worn a proper coat. It's October. This is what I had. I told you I could lend you one." At 6 that morning, while Leah was trying to find Samuel's good tie, Denise had sent a text that read, "I may have something in the hall closet if you need it." Leah had not known it was an instruction. "I'm warm enough," she said. Denise's mouth tightened. "You always say that after it's too late to do anything." Before Leah could decide what that meant, Eric Caldwell came across the wet grass carrying 3 paper cups of coffee. At 32, he had the solid build of someone who still described himself as a former athlete. His suit jacket pulled at the buttons. He offered 1 cup to his mother, kept one, and looked mildly surprised to discover the 3rd in his hand. "Oh," he said. This was Mr. Haney's. "That's okay," Leah said. "You want it?" "After Mr. Haney?" He wandered off toward the bathrooms. "Coffee has a window." Denise took the extra cup from him. "Please don't make jokes beside your grandfather's grave. I didn't make the coffee beside his grave." Leah pressed her lips together. Samuel would have enjoyed that answer, though he would have made Eric wait before letting him know. The funeral director called everyone closer. Chairs sank slightly into the softened ground. Leah remained standing behind Denise because there were only 6 seats, and no one had said which one was hers. Samuel's brother took the last empty chair, lowering himself with a grunt and an apology aimed at no one in particular. The pastor spoke about steadfastness. Samuel had been steadfast in faith, steadfast in family, steadfast in service. Leah listened to rainwater tick from the maple leaves and tried to fit the man in the casket inside those polished words. Samuel's steadfastness had looked like a kitchen drawer containing 27 bread ties because they still tied bread. It looked like a furnace serviced every September and a doctor's appointment resisted until Leah threatened to call an ambulance just to irritate him. It looked like him refusing to say he was frightened while gripping her wrist hard enough to leave 4 pale marks. The pastor said Samuel was generous. Denise bowed her head. Leah stared at the red clay along the grave's edge. Samuel had once driven 20 miles to return a cashier's $6 mistake, then complained about the gasoline for a week. Generous was not wrong. It was simply not easy. When the service ended, people hugged Denise first. They told her she had been a good daughter. Denise accepted this with damp eyes and both hands around theirs. Several people hugged Leah too, but they spoke to her in the soft, uncertain tone reserved for employees and distant cousins. "You took such good care of him. You were a comfort. He was lucky you were available." Available. As if Leah had been sitting on a shelf when Samuel's heart failure worsened. She thanked everyone. That was what she did at work when families praised her for cleaning up things they could not bear to look at. Thank you. He was comfortable. She had a good morning. No trouble at all. At the parking lot, Denise caught up with her. "We need to talk at the house." Leah stopped beside her 12-year-old Honda, its rear bumper held at one corner by a black zip tie Samuel had declared temporary 11 months ago. About what? The next steps. For the service? For everything. Denise looked toward Eric, who was placing flower arrangements in the back of his SUV. He had removed his tie and was using it to secure the hatch over a spray of white lilies. "Don't do that," Denise called. "It's already a funeral tie." "It was your father's." Eric immediately untied it. That small obedience made Leah unexpectedly jealous. Samuel's townhouse was only 9 minutes from the cemetery. Leah arrived to find 2 cars already in the drive, though she had left before everyone else. Denise's friend Carol was carrying foil-covered dishes into the kitchen. Eric had opened the garage. Yellow adhesive labels appeared on the dining table beside a black marker and a roll of trash bags. Leah stood inside the front door and smelled ham, furniture polish, and the medicinal sweetness that had clung to the house during Samuel's last month. His walker was gone from beside the recliner. She looked toward the hallway. The indentation remained in the carpet, a pale rectangular patch where the rubber feet had rested. "Carol, the potato salad goes in the refrigerator," Denise said. "I know where potato salad goes. I'm only saying there's room on the bottom shelf. There won't be after I put the potato salad there." Eric came through the garage door holding a cardboard box. "Mom, are we keeping the circular saw? Your grandfather wanted you to have his tools." "When did he say that?" "He didn't have to say everything." Leah looked at Denise. Denise noticed. "What?" "Nothing. That expression isn't nothing. I was wondering where his walker went. The medical supply company collected it. Today? They were efficient." Leah pictured a stranger entering Samuel's room while the family stood over his grave. "You arranged that before the funeral?" "We can't freeze the house in time, Leah. I didn't ask you to. No, you just look at me as though I've committed some offense every time I handle something." Carol closed the refrigerator with her hip. "I'm going to find serving spoons." She opened the silverware drawer and studied it with great concentration. Denise lowered her voice. "This is what I meant by next steps. The realtor is coming Monday. We need the house cleared enough for photographs." "Monday?" "The market slows before the holidays." Leah tried to follow the sentence to the place where it included her. "Okay, I can start packing Grandpa's clothes tomorrow. I've already arranged the donation pickup. Then I'll do my room." "Yes. That's what we need to discuss." Eric set the box on the floor without taking his hands off it. Leah looked from him to Denise. "What about my room? It needs to be cleared tonight." For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood. Denise's voice was too ordinary. Behind her, Carol placed spoons beside the ham and carefully lined up their handles. "Tonight?" "Eric brought boxes." "You brought boxes to the funeral?" "I brought them here," Eric said. "Technically." Denise shot him a look. "We assumed you would stay with one of your friends until you find another arrangement." "What friends?" "Oh, Leah." "No, I'm asking. Which friend did you assume?" Denise took off her coat and draped it over Samuel's chair. "You're 25. You have co-workers. People your age don't generally require their aunt to organize their housing. I gave up my apartment when Grandpa couldn't stay alone. We all made sacrifices." Leah glanced at the yellow labels. Keep, sell, Eric, Denise. The label bearing Denise's name was already attached to Samuel's walnut clock. I cut my hours in half. And you lived here rent-free for 18 months. I lived here because he needed help getting to the bathroom at 2 in the morning. Eric released the box. Nobody's saying you didn't help. You called it rent. I didn't call it anything. Your mother did. Denise drew herself upright. Do not turn this into an accounting exercise. If we start counting every bill your grandfather paid while you were here, I doubt you'll like the total. Leah felt heat climb under the collar of her dress. She could have listed the nights she slept in 90-minute pieces, the showers interrupted by Samuel's bell, the client hours she surrendered, the groceries she bought because he disliked Denise seeing his empty refrigerator. None of it sounded dignified once converted into evidence. I need more than a few hours. The locks are being changed in the morning. Carol quietly picked up the tray of ham and carried it back into the kitchen, although no one had eaten. Eric rubbed the side of his face. You can put your stuff in my garage for a week. Denise looked at him as if this were disloyal. Leah said, And where do I sleep? He looked down. I've got a couch, but the place is kind of, your mother doesn't want me there. That's not what I said, Denise replied. You didn't have to say everything. The words landed between them. Samuel's words returned with a sharper edge. Denise went pale, then busy. She picked up the marker, capped it, uncapped it, and set it down. Your grandfather's estate has to be handled properly. There are legal responsibilities. Your staying here complicates possession. I'm not trying to possess the house. Then we agree. Leah waited for grief to make Denise softer. It did not. Maybe grief had made her efficient because softness would crack something she could not repair. Leah could understand that and still have nowhere to sleep. She went down the hall. Her belongings had already been removed from the dresser. Eric had packed her work scrubs with her winter sweaters and placed her shoes on top, soles against the fabric. Samuel's Bible lay alone on the stripped bed. He had kept it on the table beside his recliner, though Leah rarely saw him read it. The leather was worn almost white at the corners. When she picked it up, the back cover sat oddly open, but Eric called from the doorway before she examined it. Need help with that box? I've been lifting Grandpa for a year and a half. Grandpa weighed less than his toolbox. He would hate that you said that. He'd hate that it was true. For a second, they shared the beginning of a smile. Then Eric looked toward the living room and lowered his voice. Mom's in a state. So am I. Yeah. He nodded. You just do it quieter. By sunset, Leah's life fit into her Honda with the rear seats folded down. Denise gave her a plastic container of ham and 2 dinner rolls, then asked for the spare house key. Leah placed it in her palm. Denise closed her fingers around it. This isn't personal. Leah looked past her at Samuel's chair, the walnut clock now wearing Denise's yellow label, and the empty patch where his walker had stood. What would personal look like? At the motel, Leah left the ham untouched and counted her money twice. She could afford 4 nights if she skipped breakfast, 6 if the motel did not discover the discount code she had used was meant for state employees. She opened Samuel's Bible because it was the only thing in the room that still smelled faintly of home. Now the folded deed trembled in her hands. The legal language resisted her, but certain words held still. Life estate, remainder, easement, 62 acres. Her name appeared not once, but 3 times. At the bottom, beneath the recording information, was a location outside Jonesboro and the older name of a road she dimly recognized. Leah turned the page over, searching for a note in Samuel's cramped handwriting. There was none, only the certified stamp, the parcel number, and a place called Carter Ridge Farm. She searched the road name on her phone and found 3 versions of it. One led to a church, one to a paving company, and one to a dead end rendered in satellite view as a green smear between 2 ridges. She enlarged the image until the pixels broke apart. There might have been a roof under the trees. There might have been nothing. The deed's description was worse. Beginning at an iron pin in the northerly margin of Old Millstone Road. She knew what an iron pin was. She knew what north meant. After that, the sentences became a procession of chains, poles, degrees, and trees that had probably died before she was born. Samuel had understood such language. He treated instruction manuals like correspondence from trusted friends. When Leah bought a used microwave, he spent 40 minutes reading its booklet and then warned her not to operate it underwater. "Was that one of the features?" she had asked. It was in bold. The memory made the motel room feel emptier. Leah tried the county property website, but the search form refused to recognize the parcel number. She entered Samuel's name. It returned his townhouse and 2 men named Samuel Carter, who had died in the 19th century. At 11, someone laughed in the room next door. Pipes knocked inside the wall. Leah lay down in her funeral clothes with the deed beneath the motel's laminated channel guide. It seemed both too important to leave exposed and too ridiculous to hide. She slept for perhaps an hour. At 2:30, she woke convinced Denise had known about the farm. By 3, she was certain Denise had not. At 4:15, she wondered if the deed was a copy Samuel had meant to destroy. At 5, she decided it was some kind of elaborate tax problem that would require forms she could not afford to misunderstand. By 7, she had showered, changed into her cream thermal shirt and dark work jeans, and zipped the black dress into the garment bag she used for clients' spare blankets. Her denim jacket still smelled faintly of cemetery rain. She braided her hair, placed the Bible and deed in her olive canvas backpack, and checked out before the motel could charge her for another day by accident. The Washington County Courthouse complex had 3 entrances, 2 metal detectors, and no obvious place for a grieving woman carrying ham in a plastic container. A security officer directed her to the Register of Deeds office. Down the hall, left at the flags. There were flags at both ends. Leah chose wrong, passed the same vending machine twice, and arrived at the counter 11 minutes after the office opened. Behind it, a woman with silver-framed glasses was watering a pothos plant from a paper cup. "I'm probably in the wrong place," Leah said. The woman set down the cup. "That's how most people begin." Her nameplate read, Celia Brooks. Leah took the folded deed from the Bible. "I found this last night." Celia accepted it by the edges. Her expression did not change as she examined the stamp, but her thumb paused on the recording number. "Where did you get this copy?" "It was in my grandfather's Bible." "That's a new one. Is it fake?" "I didn't say that." Celia turned to her computer and entered the recording number. Leah watched reflected rows of text move across the woman's glasses. Samuel had always distrusted any office where the chairs were bolted together. He said fixed chairs suggested the government knew how long people ought to sit. Leah chose one anyway because her knees had started to shake. Celia clicked through several screens, then rose. "Give me a minute." She disappeared behind a partition with the deed. Leah sat beneath a framed photograph of the county courthouse. A printer whirred somewhere out of sight. 2 men discussed whether a boundary line ran through a shed or the shed had been built over the boundary line. Neither seemed especially concerned. She imagined Celia returning with a police officer. She had no reason to imagine this except that Denise had spent years implying forms became criminal if Leah touched the wrong box. Instead, Celia came back carrying a second set of papers. "You're Leah Marie Carter?" "Yes. I'll need to see identification before I give you a certified copy of anything. I have it." Leah fumbled through her wallet and handed over her driver's license. Celia looked at the photograph, then at Leah. "You've changed your hair. I was 19. Most people have." Celia returned the license and placed the 2 documents side by side. One was the sheet from Samuel's Bible. The other appeared identical, except for a fresh certification page. "The instrument in your Bible is a certified copy made in 2019. This is the instrument currently in the county record. Same book and page, same legal description, same acknowledgement. So it's real? It is a true copy of a recorded deed." The distinction sounded important. "Does that mean the farm belongs to me?" Celia adjusted her glasses. "I can tell you what our records show. I cannot give you legal advice. Of course, your grandfather conveyed the property to himself for life, with the remainder to you. He reserved the right to occupy and control it during his lifetime. Upon his death, that life estate ended. Leah tried to make her mind hold still. And then, the remainder interest became possessory. Is that the same as yes? Celia's mouth moved slightly. In the limited vocabulary available to a county clerk who is not your attorney, our land records show title vested as described in this deed. That is not a limited vocabulary. It's the safest one. Leah touched her name on the page. Could my aunt sell it? Not through your grandfather's estate, according to this instrument. Could she take it? Celia looked up. Is she trying? I don't think she knows it exists. Then I wouldn't begin by handing her ideas. The answer surprised a breath of laughter from Leah. Celia let it pass without smiling. She showed Leah the recording date. Samuel had signed the deed 7 years earlier, with an attorney's acknowledgement and 2 witnesses. He had ordered the certified copy later. A separate plat showed an access strip curving from the county road across what appeared to be another parcel. The lane is mine too. The land beneath it isn't. The deed grants this parcel a recorded easement for ingress and egress, so I'm allowed to use it. That is what an access easement is for. Even if it's blocked? Celia considered her. Blocked by what? I don't know yet. Then find out what is true before you borrow trouble. That sounded so much like Samuel that Leah looked at her sharply. Celia was studying the older road names on the plat. Old Millstone was renamed Darnell Hollow Road after the 911 address conversion. The entrance should be just beyond a low concrete bridge. If you reach the Mercer Orchard, you've gone too far. You know it? I know maps. Did you know my grandfather? Not personally. I remember him recording an easement clarification. He came back 3 times because the first notary stamp was too faint. That was also painfully Samuel. Did he say why he was doing it? If he did, I don't remember. We record decisions. People generally keep their reasons. Celia gave her the number for the county property assessor and suggested she verify where future tax notices would go. The account was current. No mystery debt appeared, but the next annual bill would be Leah's responsibility. The farmhouse had not been assessed as occupied in years. Before Leah left, Celia slid a clear document sleeve across the counter. Paper and coffee are natural enemies. I don't have coffee. You will eventually. Outside, the morning clouds had thinned to bright strips over the courthouse roof. Leah sat in her Honda with the fresh, certified copy protected in the sleeve, and Samuel's copy returned to the Bible. She called Denise before she could talk herself out of it. Her aunt answered on the 4th ring. Did you find somewhere to stay? Good morning to you, too. I was worried. Leah heard dishes clinking. Denise was in Samuel's kitchen. Did Grandpa own a farm? The clinking stopped. What? A place called Carter Ridge. For several seconds, only the refrigerator hummed through the phone. That old property? Denise said finally. He got rid of that years ago. How do you know? Because nobody's been there since Mother died. It was falling apart then. That doesn't mean he sold it. What is this about? I found a deed. A deed to what? The farm. Denise exhaled, not in surprise but impatience. Your grandfather kept every piece of paper he ever touched. He had canceled checks from 1986. This was recorded. Leah, I am standing in a house full of his so-called records. There are receipts for batteries he no longer owned. It has my name on it. Another silence. When Denise spoke again, the impatience had vanished. What do you mean, your name? The county clerk confirmed it this morning. You went to the courthouse? I went to the Register of Deeds. Without calling me? Leah looked through the windshield at 2 sparrows hopping beneath a parked truck. I'm calling you now. Bring the paper here. No. The word came out quietly. It still changed the air between them. Denise said, Excuse me? I'm not bringing it to the house. I have a responsibility to manage Dad's estate. The clerk said the farm isn't part of the estate. A clerk is not an attorney. She was clear. Did you tell her he was sick? He wasn't sick 7 years ago. He had heart disease for 15. That isn't the same as not understanding a deed. Denise's voice tightened. I did not say he didn't understand. Not yet, Leah thought. Eric said something in the background. Denise answered him with her hand over the phone, muffling only half the words. She had found something. Leah had gone somewhere. No, she did not know. Then Denise returned. Where are you? In my car. That was not my question. I'm going to look at it. At what? The farm. Absolutely not. Those buildings could be dangerous. The objection was so unexpectedly sensible that Leah almost softened. I'll be careful. You don't even know if there's a road. There's an easement. A what? Leah looked at the map Celia had printed. I'll call you later. Leah, do not hang up on me while we're discussing family property. You called it worthless 30 seconds ago. That has nothing to do with whether it's family property. It's not. Leah ended the call, then sat with both hands on the steering wheel as if she had just driven through something. The town thinned around her. Brick storefronts gave way to service stations, then pasture, tobacco barns, and wooded hills shouldering one another beneath the clearing sky. The directions carried her outside Jonesboro, where the roads narrowed and mailboxes leaned at angles that suggested private histories. A light shower had darkened the pavement but left the air clean. By late afternoon, sunlight poured across the ridges. Leah missed Darnell Hollow Road once, turned around at a feed store, then crept past the low concrete bridge with her window down. The entrance was not marked Carter Ridge. It was hardly marked at all. 2 stone posts stood inside a wall of honeysuckle and blackberry cane. Between them, a gravel lane disappeared uphill beneath branches. Grass grew high along its center. Leah eased the Honda forward until brambles scratched both doors and a washout deep enough to swallow a tire stopped her. She parked on the widest patch she could find. The air smelled of wet leaves and cold earth. Leah put on her denim jacket, settled both straps of the olive backpack over her shoulders, and took the folded deed from its sleeve. Then she started walking. The lane curved as it climbed, pulling her away from the road. Gravel shifted beneath her caramel boots. Her braid brushed the collar of her jacket. She passed a rusted wire fence, a sagging gate, and the remains of a wooden sign with no readable letters. At the final bend, the trees opened. The farm rose above her in clear golden light. A towering, weathered bank barn dominated the upper center of the slope. Its faded boards turned amber along their edges, its rusted roof bright beneath a wide blue sky. Behind and to the right stood a modest white farmhouse, gray with neglect but upright. Overgrown orchard terraces descended the left hillside in long, half-hidden rows. Beyond the house, lower down, a stone springhouse crouched among brambles. Old wire and post fencing divided the lower pasture from the lane. Leah stopped, small in the middle of the curving gravel track, the deed hanging naturally at her side. Until that moment, the paper had been words. This was 62 acres of weather, wood, distance, and silence. Her phone rang inside the backpack. Denise, almost certainly. Leah did not answer. She kept walking toward the barn. The barn kept getting taller as she approached it. From the county road, it had been only a dark shape above the trees. Up close, its stone lower level rose straight out of the hillside, supporting 2 stories of weathered timber. Several boards had warped away from the frame. One corner of the roof showed open sky where sheets of metal had peeled back and folded themselves like paper. Leah stepped over a length of fallen gutter. The wide barn doors were chained, but the chain hung loose through a broken hasp. She pulled one door far enough to look inside. Dust brightened in the angled sunlight. Empty stalls lined the lower level. A wooden ladder led to the hayloft, though 2 rungs were missing, and a third appeared to be considering it. Along one wall sat an old feed barrel, a stack of rotting fence posts, and the metal skeleton of some implement Leah could not name. She smelled dry hay beneath the damp and old manure beneath both. "This is fine," she said aloud. A pigeon exploded from the rafters. Leah ducked so hard her backpack hit the door. The pigeon flapped through a broken board and vanished into the light. Still fine. Her voice came back to her from the empty stalls. She circled the barn instead of climbing the ladder. The far side opened at the upper level, built into the bank so wagons could once enter the loft from the hill. A pair of giant doors leaned inward but remained closed. Rusted roofing littered the weeds below, each edge sharp enough to open a boot. She took photographs, though she was not sure whether she was documenting damage or proving to herself that the place existed. From behind the barn, the whole property spread downward. The farmhouse sat perhaps 50 yards away, modest and square, with a shallow porch facing the lane. The orchard terraces stepped down the opposite slope. Most of the trees had gone wild, their crowns tangled together, but the lines beneath the growth were still visible. Farther down, the pasture dipped toward the old fence and the road beyond it. There was no neighboring house in sight. That fact settled differently now that the sun had reached the ridge. Leah removed her phone from her backpack. 6 missed calls. 3 from Denise, 2 from Eric, and 1 from the motel asking whether she had left a phone charger in room 14. She had. Eric had also sent a message. "Mom is freaking out. Call me before she calls somebody official." Leah stared at the phrase, "somebody official." Denise collected official people the way Samuel had collected bread ties. Realtors, insurance agents, bank managers, men who gave estimates while calling women young lady. She typed, "I'm safe." Eric's reply came before she put the phone away. "Is it actually there?" She photographed the barn and sent it. The little dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Wow. A moment later, "Looks condemned." That was more like him. She continued toward the farmhouse. Brambles crowded its foundation, reaching nearly to the first-floor windows on the downhill side. The white siding had faded to the color of dishwater. 2 porch boards sagged. A rusted porch light tilted beside the front door. Leah tested each step before putting her weight on it. The front window was cloudy but unbroken. Through it, she saw a room with a braided rug, a wood stove, and furniture draped in yellowed sheets. She pressed closer. A dark stain marked one corner of the ceiling, but the floor beneath it appeared intact. The front door was locked. Of course it was. Samuel might leave a deed in a Bible, but he would never leave a door unlocked. Leah checked beneath the mat and felt ridiculous. The mat had partly decomposed into the porch. She tried above the door frame, then behind the loose porch light. Nothing. At the side of the house, a narrow set of steps led to a kitchen door. A metal milk box sat beside it, its lid rusted shut. Leah kicked the base, heard something rattle, and pried the lid open with the edge of a flat stone. Inside lay 3 roofing nails, a dead wasp, and a key wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. She laughed once, without humor. Not obvious at all. The key turned, but the door had swollen against its frame. Leah pushed with her shoulder. Paint cracked along the jamb. On the 3rd attempt, the door gave suddenly, sending her stumbling into a kitchen that smelled of dust, damp wood, and something faintly animal. She stood still and listened. No wings, no scratching, only the ticking of branches against a window. A porcelain sink occupied one wall beneath cabinets painted pale green. The cabinet doors did not quite meet. A small table stood in the middle of the room, one leg propped on folded cardboard. On the refrigerator, beneath a film of grime, a magnet advertised Carter Feed and Seed, with a telephone number containing only 7 digits. Leah flipped the light switch. Nothing. She tried the faucet. The handle squealed. The pipe gave one hollow knock, then coughed a tablespoon of brown water into the sink. Good talk. She opened the refrigerator, regretted it immediately, and closed it with her elbow. The interior was empty, but the sealed air carried a smell that had survived years out of pure determination. The living room was better. The wood stove showed no obvious cracks. A stone chimney ran up the interior wall. Under the sheets were a sofa, 2 chairs, and a scarred cabinet. Mouse droppings lined the edges of the room, but the center floor felt firm under her boots. A calendar still hung near the stairs. August 2008. A photograph of a red barn above a field looked tidier than anything outside. Samuel had lived in his townhouse by then. Leah tried to remember him that year. He had been 68, still mowing his own lawn, still showing up at family dinners with a pie purchased from the grocery store and transferred to one of his own plates. She had been 7 years old. The thought made the house tilt around her, not because she remembered anything important, but because Samuel had owned this place through every version of her she could remember, through high school, through her home care certification, through the year she moved into her first apartment. He had asked about rent and tires and whether her neighborhood had decent streetlights. He had never once said, "I have a house sitting empty on a ridge." The staircase creaked before she stepped on it. Leah placed one foot on the bottom tread and looked upward. The landing disappeared into shadow. She turned on her phone flashlight and climbed close to the wall. There were 3 small bedrooms and a bathroom. One bedroom ceiling had partially collapsed, leaving damp insulation scattered across the floor. The second smelled strongly of mildew. The third, facing the pasture, was dry except for a water stain near the chimney. An iron bed frame stood against the wall with no mattress. A washstand held an enamel basin and a dead beetle. Leah opened the closet. 2 wire hangers swung gently though she had not touched them. On the upper shelf sat a folded wool blanket, gray with dust. No secret box, no note, no smiling photograph placed where she would find it. She was relieved and disappointed. The bathroom toilet was dry. The tub contained a curled snakeskin. Leah backed into the hall. "Fine," she whispered. "It probably moved out." The sun had lowered by the time she returned downstairs. Gold light stretched across the kitchen floor. She found an electrical panel beside the back door and opened it. Every breaker was marked in Samuel's square handwriting. Range. Well? The question mark had been crossed out and replaced with spring pump, though there was no power to test anything. Inside a lower cabinet, she discovered a stack of old newspapers, a chipped mixing bowl, and a garden trowel. She took the trowel to the spring house. The path downhill had nearly vanished beneath jewelweed and blackberry cane. She used a fallen branch to push the growth aside. The spring house was built of stone with a low tin roof, set beyond and downhill from the farmhouse as the plat suggested. Cold seeped from it even before she opened the warped wooden door. Inside, a shallow stone basin lay under leaves and black silt. A narrow pipe emerged from the uphill wall. Another disappeared toward the house. Water glimmered somewhere beneath the muck. Leah crouched and scraped with the trowel. Wet leaves came up in heavy clumps. After a few minutes, water gathered in the space she had cleared, clean enough to reflect the sky. It was not proof of plumbing. It was barely proof of water. Still, she sat back on her heels and watched it rise. Her phone rang again. This time it was Eric. "What?" she said. "Well, hello to you too. I'm standing in mud. So it's a real farm. It's real. Mom says you won't send her the deed. She doesn't need it. She says she does. Then she can go to the courthouse like I did." Eric was quiet. Leah heard a cardboard box slide over a floor at Samuel's house. "Did Grandpa ever take you there?" she asked. "To the farm?" "No, I thought it got sold after Grandma died. So did Denise. That's what he told her." Leah gripped the trowel. "He told her that?" "That's what Mom says. You know how those two were. They could make a disagreement last longer than a refrigerator. What did they disagree about?" "No idea. Selling, probably." "Mom said the place was eating money." Behind Leah, water made a faint trickling sound beneath the leaves. Eric continued, "Look, if that deed is legitimate—" "It is." "Then congratulations on your condemned pigeon palace." "Thank you. I'm serious." Be careful. Barns collapse. So do porches. What porch? Nothing. You're not planning to stay there, are you? Leah looked uphill at the white farmhouse. Shadows had filled its windows. I haven't planned anything. Good, because Mom wants us to talk tonight. Us? Family. You packed me out before the ham was cold. That was Mom. You carried the boxes. A pause. Yeah. Leah waited. I thought you knew, he said. Knew what? That she wanted the house empty right away. How would that make it better? It doesn't. I'm just saying I didn't know you had nowhere lined up. You never asked. He let out a breath. Come by tomorrow. We'll figure something out. The offer sounded almost kind until Leah imagined herself sitting at Samuel's table while they decided what portion of her own deed she was allowed to keep. I'll call you. She ended the conversation before it could become permission. Night came quickly in the hollow. Leah locked the farmhouse and walked back to her car using her phone flashlight. Branches scraped her jacket. The Honda waited below with nearly everything she owned, visible through the windows. She drove to the nearest motel. Their cheapest room cost $20 more than the one she had left. Leah sat in the parking lot calculating food, gasoline, and how long until her next paycheck. Then she searched for hardware stores still open. She bought a flashlight, batteries, 2 gallons of water, work gloves, a dust mask, and the least expensive garden shovel on the rack. The cashier asked whether she was starting a project. Something like that. Leah slept in her car at a highway rest area, waking whenever headlights crossed the windshield. By mid-morning, she was back at Carter Ridge. The air had warmed, and the spring house no longer looked mysterious. It looked clogged. She carried the shovel downhill, tied her braid higher, and began lifting out years of leaves and black silt. The work gave her something simple to resent. Each load made a wet, sucking sound. Mud soaked through one knee of her jeans. Her shoulders began to burn. She did not hear anyone approach until a man behind her said, "If you dig much deeper there, you're going to turn drinking water into a wallow." Leah spun, raising the shovel. The man stepped back and lifted both hands. He was broad-shouldered, weathered, and perhaps 50, wearing an old green cap and mud-streaked boots. His gaze moved from the shovel to the spring house, then up towards Samuel's farmhouse. "You're either lost," he said, "or Carter Ridge finally has a very angry owner." Leah kept the shovel raised. The man looked at it again. "I'd be more worried if you knew how to hold that thing. I know enough. You've got your thumbs wrapped wrong." She adjusted them before realizing he had tricked her into lowering the blade. He nodded toward the water. "Spring box has a stone bottom. You punch through the silt too hard, you'll stir clay into it. Might take days to settle. How do you know?" "Because I helped clean it once." "When?" "Long enough ago that my back didn't complain about it." He removed his cap and wiped his forehead with his sleeve. His hair had gone mostly gray at the temples. Up close, he looked closer to 55 than 50, with deep lines beside his mouth and a pale strip across his brow where the cap usually sat. "Owen Mercer," he said. "My orchard's down the road. The one I was supposed to reach if I went too far. Depends who gave you directions." "Celia Brooks." "Then yes, Celia describes distance according to who owns the next tax parcel. Leah Carter. I guess the Carter." He did not offer his hand. Leah was relieved. Hers were coated in black mud. "Did you know Samuel?" Owen's expression shifted so slightly she might have missed it if she had not spent years reading faces at bedsides. "I knew him some." "What does that mean?" "It means he wasn't a man who invited people to know him a lot." That was a better answer than most people had given at the funeral. Owen crouched outside the spring house and pointed to the basin. "This isn't where you start. See that pipe in the uphill wall?" Leah leaned closer. A rust-darkened pipe emerged between 2 stones. The water feeds through there. Intakes farther up, probably under that patch of spice bush. This box settles sediment before the line runs down and then back toward the house. Water runs downhill, then uphill. Only if the first hill is higher. That sounds like something my grandfather would say. He said it to me. Owen took the shovel from her without asking and used the tip to trace a shallow channel through the muck. Water immediately seeped into it. "You've got flow," he said. "That's better than no flow. Don't drink it yet. I wasn't planning to." "You bought 2 gallons of water." Leah followed his gaze. The empty plastic jug she had carried down lay beside the door. "You've been watching me. I saw your car yesterday. Saw it again today. Figured somebody was either stealing the house very slowly or had a reason to be here. I have a reason. I expect you do." She waited for him to ask for proof. He did not. Owen leaned the shovel against the wall. "You'll want the water tested. Clear the intake first gently. Flush the line if it isn't split. There used to be a shutoff near the kitchen steps, but that was before the blackberry vines established a government." Leah looked uphill. "Can it work without electricity?" Most of it did. Samuel put in a small pump later to improve pressure upstairs. "Gravity ought to get you something downstairs if the line's open." "Ought to?" You'll hear that word a lot with old farms. He walked toward the spice bush, using one boot to flatten a path. Leah followed. He found the intake beneath a low stone arch almost invisible under roots and leaves. The iron cover resisted until Owen wedged the shovel under its edge. Cold, clear water filled the narrow chamber. Leah stared. "That looks clean." "So does vodka. You still shouldn't wash your face in it before work. I work with people who've seen worse. What do you do? Home care?" Owen glanced at her muddy jeans. "Today included. I'm between clients." It was not quite true. Her supervisor had texted twice asking when she planned to resume regular hours. Leah had not answered because she did not know what address to put on the mileage form. Owen pulled a handful of leaves from the intake screen. "This part's not bad. Screen needs replacing. Line's likely plugged closer to the house. You can tell that from here?" "No. I can tell you've got a spring and no water at the sink. Everything between is a suspect." He set the cover back into place and climbed the slope without waiting to see whether she followed. At the farmhouse, he refused to step onto the porch. "That corner's pulling away," he said. "I noticed." "You stood on it yesterday. How did you—" "Wet boot prints." Leah looked down at the dirt beneath the steps. Owen walked around the house studying the siding, chimney, and foundation, with the detached interest of someone examining a used tractor he did not intend to buy. He pressed a pocket knife into one windowsill. The wood accepted half the blade. "Don't do that," Leah said. "You'd rather not know? I'd rather you not make a new hole." He closed the knife. "Fair." At the electrical panel, he took one look and shook his head. "What?" "I'm not an electrician. That is not a useful shake of the head. It's the only kind I had available." Leah folded her arms. Owen pointed to the service line from the pole. "Power's been off years. Don't let the utility energize anything until somebody checks the panel, outlets, and wiring. Mice enjoy electrical insulation. Do they enjoy anything cheap? Not in my experience." He continued past the farmhouse toward the terraces. Leah was beginning to understand that his help came in the form of motion. If she wanted it, she had to keep up. The nearest fruit trees looked worse from inside the orchard. Vines climbed their trunks. Dead branches crossed living ones. Windfall apples lay hidden beneath weeds, brown and collapsing. Owen stopped under a tree with dark red fruit still clinging to its upper branches. He picked up a fallen apple, rubbed it against his shirt, and cut away the bruised side with his pocket knife. "You just told me not to drink clear spring water." "I didn't tell you to eat this." He bit into it. The crunch was surprisingly crisp. "What kind is it?" Leah asked. "Probably Arkansas black. Hard to be certain with trees this neglected." He handed her the unbitten half. She examined its deep red skin. "I thought Arkansas black would be black. You thought wrong." Leah took a cautious bite. The flesh was firm and sharp enough to tighten her jaw. "That is not good. It will be in a month. They improve in storage. Fruit has to rest before it tastes better. So do people, I hear." They moved along the terrace. Owen identified a wine sap by its spicy scent. then stopped at a tree bearing small greenish apples mottled red. "Could be limbertwig," he said. "Could be? If you want certainty, bring me leaves, fruit, photographs, and patience. I have 3 of those." He glanced at her. "Which are you missing?" "Depends on the hour." For the first time, he smiled. Farther uphill, he found a tree split down the center but still holding yellow-red fruit on one side. He touched the bark with more gentleness than Leah expected. Virginia beauty, maybe. These old trees can be stubborn. Are they worth anything? To whom? To someone with taxes. There's a cider maker in Greene County who sometimes buys heritage windfalls. Restaurants will pay for good table fruit if it's cleaned and packed right. But nobody wants 2 tons of worm damage and optimism. I wasn't asking if I was rich. Good, because you're not. He looked across the terraces, counting silently. You might save some. Not all. Don't try to rescue every tree because it belonged to somebody before you. That's how you kill yourself and still disappoint the dead. Leah turned toward him. Owen had already started downhill. At the lane, he paused beside her Honda. Her black funeral dress hung inside the garment bag from the rear grab handle. Boxes covered the folded seats. A pillow was wedged beneath the steering column where it had fallen after the night at the rest area. "You staying in the house?" he asked. "Not yet." "Good." The word irritated her. "I said not yet, and I agreed. You said it like you won something. I don't have anything at stake. Then why are you here?" Owen fitted his cap more firmly. "My west orchard borders your north line. If Carter Ridge burns, floods, falls down, or turns into an event venue, I'm interested. I'm not opening an event venue. Everyone says that until they price string lights." He pointed down the lane. "I have a brush mower you can borrow after you clear enough metal out of the weeds to stop destroying blades. You break it, you fix it. You return it dirty, you don't borrow it again. You offer equipment to every stranger who threatens you with a shovel? No. Most strangers hold their thumbs correctly." He left before she could answer, walking through the lower pasture toward a gap in the fence she had not noticed. Leah stood beside the car with mud drying on her knees. For the rest of the afternoon, she worked on the farmhouse instead of the spring. She opened windows, swept mouse droppings into doubled trash bags, and dragged the ruined mattress from the mildew room down the stairs, one step at a time. It jammed at the turn and knocked a framed print from the wall. The glass shattered. Behind it was nothing but faded wallpaper. "Of course," Leah said. She carried the pieces outside and added them to a growing pile beside the kitchen steps. Her supervisor called while she was wiping cabinet shelves with diluted bleach. "Leah, I'm trying to be kind about this. I know, Miriam. You've missed 2 shifts. My grandfather died. I know. I sent flowers." Leah remembered the arrangement at the funeral home, but not which card had been Miriam's. "I can take Mrs. Lang's evening visits starting tomorrow," she said, "and the Hensley mornings next week. You're staying local?" "Yes." The answer steadied something. She was local. Carter Ridge was not another state or another life. It was 30 minutes from most of her clients if the lane did not eat her car. Miriam sighed. "I need you reliable. You will have me." After the call, Leah made another to an electrical contractor. The inspection would cost almost half what she had left after the motel, supplies, and gasoline. He could come the following afternoon. She scheduled it. Then she drove into town and bought 2 tarps, a small camp stove, heavy extension cords she might not be able to use, canned soup, roofing nails, and a pair of rubber gloves. She put each receipt into the document sleeve behind the deed because Samuel had taught her that expenses became rumors if they were not written down. At dusk, she spread one tarp over the iron bed frame in the dry upstairs room and another beneath the foam camping pad she had retrieved from her car. She checked the ceiling stain, the window latch, and the floor around the chimney. The air smelled of bleach and cold plaster. It was not safe enough. It was not comfortable. It was not even technically warm. But it had a door she could lock from the inside. Leah set Samuel's Bible on the washstand. Her phone showed 4 new messages from Denise and 1 photograph from Eric. The photograph showed his trailer backed against the garage at Samuel's townhouse, loaded with tools and boxes. His message read, "Mom says some of this came from the farm originally. We should sort out what belongs where." Leah enlarged the image. Beneath a coil of rope and Samuel's circular saw was a long, rusted metal attachment that looked like the skeleton in the barn. She typed, "Don't take anything else until we talk." Eric replied, "Already loaded." A second message arrived, "We'll bring the trailer up tomorrow." Leah read the message twice, then carried the phone to the kitchen window as if better light might change it. "We'll bring the trailer up tomorrow. Not ask, not discuss, bring." She typed, "Do not come onto the property without me there." Eric answered with a thumbs up. She had never trusted that particular thumb. The first night in the farmhouse was colder than the outside air had any right to be. Every board made a separate complaint. Something moved inside the wall near her head, paused when she sat up, then resumed with the confidence of a tenant who had been paying in advance. At 1:14, Leah heard 3 heavy knocks from downstairs. She grabbed the flashlight and stood beside the bed, listening. The knocks came again. Tree branch, she decided. A scrape followed along the siding. Murderous tree branch. She went halfway down the stairs and found a narrow branch tapping the living room window whenever the wind shifted. After cutting it back with a pair of pruning shears from her car, she stood on the porch beneath a spray of stars, so bright they made the farm look less abandoned and more hidden. Samuel's Bible was visible through the upstairs window, a dark shape on the washstand. He had known she frightened easily in strange houses. The first week she lived with him, she woke at 2 in the morning to find him installing a brighter bulb over the back steps. "Could have waited until daylight," she had said. "Then you wouldn't need it." He had never once brought her here. Leah went back inside angry enough to sleep. She woke after sunrise with one boot still on and the flashlight under her cheek. Her breath showed faintly in the room. She heated canned coffee on the camp stove outside the kitchen door, because the instructions warned against using it indoors, and Samuel's voice would have risen from the grave to read the warning aloud. At 8, she drove down to the county road to make sure the electrical contractor could identify the entrance. She tied a strip of orange cloth around one stone post and used the shovel to cut back the worst blackberry canes. Eric's SUV appeared first. He pulled a utility trailer loaded with boxes, tools, the rusted attachment from his photograph, and 2 wooden chairs upside down on top of everything. Denise sat beside him. Leah could see her talking before the vehicle stopped. Eric lowered his window. "Morning. I told you not to come without me. You're here. You didn't know I would be. The car's right there. That isn't the point." Denise leaned across him. "Could we get off the road before someone hits us?" Eric turned into the entrance. The trailer's right wheel dropped into the washout, bounced, and swung sideways. He braked with the trailer angled across the lane, its rear corner nearly touching one stone post. "Well," he said. Leah stared at the blocked entrance. "The electrician is coming. Then we'll move before he gets here." Denise opened her door. "I told you the trailer was too wide. It's not too wide. The road's too narrow. The road existed first. Mom, roads don't get seniority." Leah almost smiled. Then she saw a yellow label on one of the boxes. "Eric." "What did you bring?" "Stuff from Grandpa's garage that might belong here," Eric said. "Might? We figured we'd compare." "You brought dining chairs." Denise climbed down carefully. She wore clean hiking shoes, pressed jeans, and a burgundy sweater Leah had seen at Christmas dinners. "Those were Mother's kitchen chairs. They came from this house. You told me you thought the farm was sold. I thought the land was sold. I knew Dad removed furniture. Then why is his deed to me such a shock?" Denise looked past her, up the overgrown lane. Because there was a difference between old chairs and 62 acres. They walked uphill while Eric wrestled with the trailer jack. Denise stopped twice. Once to remove a burr from her sweater, and once because the barn had come into view. For a long moment she said nothing. Leah had expected contempt. Instead, Denise's face loosened with something close to fear. "It looks smaller," she said. "The barn, everything." The property towered around them. Leah waited. Denise touched the base of her throat. There used to be a pear tree beside the lane. Did Grandpa cut it down? Lightning did. Dad said the tree was being dramatic. That was exactly the sort of thing Samuel would say, and for one dangerous second, they stood inside the same memory of him. Then Denise turned toward the farmhouse. "You've been sleeping here?" "One night." "That is irresponsible." The shared ground vanished. I locked the door. The roof could collapse. It didn't. What if it had? "I guess you'd have to clear out another house." Denise flinched. Leah regretted the sentence as soon as it left her, but not enough to apologize. Inside, her aunt moved through the kitchen without touching anything. The changed room was still mostly empty, yet Denise noticed the removed trash, the swept floor, and the clean counter. "You've already started," she said. "I needed somewhere to put food." Denise looked at the pale green cabinets. Mother painted those. She mixed two colors because the store didn't have the green she wanted, then got angry when she couldn't reproduce it for touch-ups. Leah imagined her grandmother at the table, opening paint cans, swearing in the mild and inventive way Leah remembered. "Why didn't anyone ever bring me here? We stopped coming." "That isn't an answer. It's the answer I have." Denise stepped into the living room. Her gaze settled on the wood stove, then moved quickly away. "Your grandfather let the place go after your grandmother died. I told him to sell while it still had value. He accused me of wanting to erase her." "Did you?" "No." Denise's response came too quickly, then changed shape. "I wanted him to stop paying taxes on a shrine he refused to visit. He kept it, out of spite." "And gave it to me?" Denise faced her. "That is the part I don't understand." Leah heard the unspoken words. "Why you?" Neither of them said them. Eric came through the back door carrying the box marked with his name. "Where do you want this?" "What is it?" Leah asked. He set it on the kitchen table. Inside were iron hinges, 2 lanterns, a coffee grinder, a stack of chipped plates, and a brass handbell. Farm stuff. "You labeled it Eric." "That was before we knew." Leah lifted one of the lanterns. Dust lay thick beneath the handle, but the glass was intact. "Put all of it in the living room for now." Eric saluted. "Yes, land baron." "Don't call her that," Denise said. The defense surprised both of them. Denise busied herself opening cabinet doors. Eric made 3 more trips, bringing the chairs, boxes of hand tools, and an old galvanized bucket. Then he headed toward the barn. Leah followed. "What are you doing?" "Looking." "At what?" "Grandpa kept a hay rake here. It's probably worth restoring. You just brought things back. I brought things that belong to the house. And now you're taking things that belong to the barn?" He pulled the loose chain from the door. "Mom said Grandpa promised me his tools. She said he didn't have to say it." Same difference. It is almost the opposite difference. Inside, Eric used his phone flashlight to scan the stalls. He knew more about the equipment than Leah did. He identified an old cultivator, a seeder with a broken wheel, and iron weights stacked beneath a workbench. His interest sharpened when he found a red metal toolbox under a tarp. "That's a good one. Leave it." "Leah, you don't know what half this stuff does. That doesn't make it yours. Does owning the ground make you an expert on everything sitting on it? No. It makes me the person you ask before removing it." His face reddened. "We loaded your entire life yesterday and you didn't care who owned the boxes. That was my life inside them. I offered my garage, after your mother put me out." Denise stood in the barn entrance. "Stop saying I put you out as if I changed the locks while you were at the funeral. You scheduled the locks for the next morning. I gave you time. You gave me an afternoon." The sound of tires on gravel interrupted them. Leah ran outside. A white work van had stopped behind Eric's trailer at the entrance. The driver got out, surveyed the angle, and called up the hill. "Anybody planning to open this road?" Eric walked down at an infuriatingly unhurried pace. "Give me a minute." The trailer jack had sunk into soft ground. Its wheel sat against the washout, and Eric's first attempt to straighten it only dragged the rear closer to the stone post. The contractor checked his watch. "I've got another appointment at 11. "How long would the inspection take?" Leah asked. "Hour, maybe more." "Can you walk up? I need testing equipment from the van." Eric revved the SUV. Mud spun beneath the rear tires. "Stop," Leah said. "I know what I'm doing." The trailer slid another inch sideways. She took out her phone and photographed it, then photographed the lane from the road to the curve. "What are you doing?" Denise asked. "Documenting that my recorded access is blocked. By your family for 10 minutes. By a trailer carrying property Eric intends to remove." Eric got out of the SUV. "I brought that equipment from Grandpa's garage, then leave it here. The attachment fits my tractor. That doesn't make it yours." He laughed without humor. "You've owned a farm for 2 days and suddenly everything's theft." Leah opened her backpack and removed the plat Celia had printed. Her hands shook, but the paper did not. "This is the easement. The trailer is across it. The deed is recorded. If you leave with anything from the property after I've told you not to, I'll have photographs of what was here and what was on your trailer. You threatening to call the police? I'm telling you, I'm done having my things packed without my permission." Eric's expression changed. Not guilt, recognition. He looked toward Denise, but she was staring at the orange cloth Leah had tied to the stone post. "Move it," Denise said. "Mom, move the trailer." It took a tow strap from the contractor's van and all 3 of them pushing to free the wheel. Eric backed onto the shoulder, clearing the lane. He did not unload the rusted tractor attachment. The contractor drove uphill. Denise followed on foot without looking at Leah. Eric remained beside his SUV. "You could have asked for help," he said. "With what?" "All of it." Leah looked at the mud on his suit shoes from the funeral, still not cleaned. "I did," she said, "for 18 months. You visited Grandpa 4 times. That isn't fair. No, it's counted." Up at the farmhouse, the inspection produced a yellow legal pad full of problems: corroded grounding, damaged outlets, rodent-chewed insulation in the attic. The service panel itself was old but usable if several unsafe circuits were disconnected and the damaged line repaired. The estimate consumed almost every dollar Leah had left. "What's the minimum to get safe power downstairs?" she asked. The contractor drew a line through 3 items, circled 2 others, and gave her a smaller number that was still frightening. She approved it. When the van left, Denise and Eric were gone. The boxes remained in the living room. The chairs sat upside down on the porch. Leah went to the spring house and crouched beside the settling basin. The water she had disturbed was clearer now. She reached into the cold flow, found the clogged outlet beneath the leaves, and pulled free a knot of roots. Somewhere uphill inside the house, an old pipe groaned. Leah ran to the kitchen. The faucet shuddered once. A thin brown stream spilled into the porcelain sink, weakened, then steadied to the width of a shoelace. It was not drinkable, and it was not enough. She stood there, watching it anyway. The stream ran for 43 seconds before coughing air. Leah turned off the faucet and opened it again. Nothing came out except a wet hiss. She went back downhill, cleared more roots from the springhouse outlet, then returned to the kitchen. This time, the water lasted 1 minute and 12 seconds. By the 5th trip, her legs shook. On the 6th, she found the problem halfway between the springhouse and the house. Water had darkened a patch of weeds beside the path. When she pulled the growth aside, she exposed a length of black plastic pipe split around a coupling. Every time the spring built pressure, most of the flow emptied into the ground. She photographed the coupling from 3 angles and sent the pictures to Owen. His answer arrived 10 minutes later. "That'll do it." She typed, "What size is it?" "Come measure." I sent pictures. Pictures don't have inches. Samuel could have written the message. Leah drove to the hardware store with a muddy section of broken coupling sealed inside a grocery bag. An employee helped her match it to new fittings, pipe clamps, and a short replacement section. She bought plumber's tape because it seemed responsible, though the employee told her she would not need it. She kept the receipt. The repair took 4 attempts. The first leaked immediately. The second held until she turned toward the house, then blew apart behind her with a sound like a bottle opening. On the third, one clamp stripped. By the fourth, Leah's hands were numb from spring water, and she had used every curse her grandmother once considered ladylike. The line held. At the kitchen sink, cloudy water surged from the faucet, turned brown, then gradually lightened. Leah let it run into a bucket for flushing and cleaning. She did not drink it. She did press 2 fingers beneath the stream and laugh when cold water struck the porcelain hard enough to splash her shirt. The pleasure lasted until she opened the cabinet and saw water dripping from the pipe beneath the sink. Of course. She placed the chipped mixing bowl under it. The electrical contractor returned the next afternoon with a helper, replaced the damaged service line, disconnected the unsafe upstairs circuits, and repaired 2 downstairs outlets. Leah stood beside the panel when he turned on the main breaker. The refrigerator began to hum. The kitchen light flickered once, twice, then glowed a weak yellow. It was not dramatic. No music played. A dead moth remained inside the fixture. Leah stared up at it until the contractor said, "You know that bulb's only 40 watts. It's enough." He handed her the invoice. It was less moving. After paying him, she had $78 in checking, $34 in cash, and a paycheck due after 3 more client visits. The property assessor's office had confirmed the taxes would not be due until the following year, but insurance required an initial payment as soon as she secured a policy. Every company she called wanted photographs, inspections, or answers she did not have. What kind of roof covered the barn? Metal, she said. What was its condition? Present in most places. Was the farmhouse permanently occupied? Leah looked around the kitchen. Her camp stove sat beside 3 cans of soup. A pair of damp socks hung from a cabinet knob. Yes. The representative paused. As a primary residence. It's the only residence I have. That answer produced a longer pause and a different form. Leah resumed work the following morning. Mrs. Lang lived alone in a brick ranch house where the heat was always set to 78. She was 86, sharper than most people who spoke loudly around her, and offended by oatmeal. "You missed Tuesday," she said as Leah helped fasten her robe. "My grandfather died." That was inconsiderate timing. Leah looked at her. Mrs. Lang's mouth twitched. "You're allowed to laugh. He's not here to object." Leah laughed. During breakfast, Mrs. Lang inspected the scratches on Leah's hands. "You fighting?" "Blackberry vines. They win." First round. Miriam had assigned another aide during Leah's absence, and Mrs. Lang complained about the woman folding washcloths incorrectly. Leah listened, cleaned the kitchen, checked medication bottles, and wrote notes in the binder beside the telephone. The familiar tasks steadied her. Here, every object had a place, every hour had a rate, and no one pretended care happened by magic. As she was leaving, Mrs. Lang said, "You look tired." "I'm fine." That answer is how tired people avoid conversation. Leah stopped with one hand on the door. Mrs. Lang adjusted the blanket over her knees. "Go be fine somewhere else. You're letting the cold in." By the time Leah finished her evening visit, rain had begun. It fell harder as she drove toward Carter Ridge. At the entrance, water ran in 2 narrow streams down the tire tracks. The Honda made it through the first rut, slipped in the second, and nearly settled into the washout where Eric's trailer had stuck. Leah reversed, tried again, and heard gravel strike the underside of the car. She parked below and carried groceries uphill in the rain, her boots sliding. The orange cloth on the stone post hung dark and defeated. Inside the farmhouse, water dripped from the ceiling stain in the damaged upstairs bedroom. The dry room remained dry. The kitchen sink pipe had filled the mixing bowl and overflowed onto the cabinet floor. Leah mopped with one of Samuel's old towels from a box Eric had returned. The faded cloth bore embroidered apples along the hem. She slept badly, listening to the barn roof flap in the wind. Morning revealed two fresh sheets of metal peeled back at the upper corner. One hung over the edge like a loose wing. The lane had lost much of its remaining gravel to the road ditch. Owen arrived carrying a thermos and stood beside the washout. "You tried to drive through that?" "I did drive through it. Your oil pan agree?" "So far." He poured coffee into the thermos cap. "You need larger stone underneath. This fine stuff just washes. I need a lot of things. That's farming. I'm not farming." Owen looked uphill toward the orchard. "Tell the trees." He walked with her to the barn and studied the hanging metal. "Don't climb up there wet." "I wasn't going to. You were looking for a ladder. I was looking at the ladder. From several angles." Leah shoved her hands into her jacket pockets. "Can it wait?" "Not through another wind. Water gets into that loft, you'll lose more boards. I can buy tarps." "Tarps tear. They're what I can buy." Owen drank his coffee. "I've got 2 used sheets of roofing metal behind my equipment shed." "Wrong color. The roof is 4 colors already, 5 counting rust." He offered the metal at half the price of new sheets. Leah could pay after her next check. The arrangement embarrassed her less than kindness would have. "Do you have a ladder?" she asked. "Yes. Can I borrow it?" "You're not getting on that roof. I need to cover the hole." "You need to cover the hole without becoming part of the ground." He showed her how to lay a temporary tarp from inside the hayloft, securing it beneath soundboards instead of climbing onto the wet roof. Leah climbed the questionable ladder while Owen held it and criticized every rung. "You know you could come up," she called down. "My contribution is judgment. You're excellent at it. That's why neighbors value me." From the loft, she could see the orchard terraces through gaps in the boards. Wind had knocked hundreds of apples into the grass. Dark red fruit flashed beneath the weeds. When the tarp was secured, Owen inspected the lower pasture and the debris along the lane. Leah had already collected wire, roofing scraps, and 2 hidden metal stakes from the worst growth. "That enough to borrow the mower?" she asked. "No, you said clear enough metal to stop destroying blades. I see 3 pieces from here." She followed his finger and found an old hinge, a loop of baling wire, and half a bucket concealed under wet leaves. "You planted those." "I don't carry spare trash." They spent an hour walking the lane with buckets. Owen found more metal because he knew where old fence lines had been. Leah found broken glass, a horseshoe, and a rusted license plate from 1974. At the barn, she emptied her bucket with a clang. "Now?" "You return it clean and fueled. You said that already." "I expect to say it again." The brush mower arrived behind Owen's tractor that afternoon. It was heavy, loud, and determined to pull Leah in every direction except forward. Owen demonstrated the controls once. "That's it? You want a certificate? I want to keep my feet. Then don't put them under it." He made her shut it down and restart it before he left. Leah began at the lane entrance. Each pass revealed more gravel beneath the grass. Blackberry canes snapped. Wet weeds collapsed. She worked slowly around exposed stones, stopping whenever the blade struck anything harder than a stem. By dusk, the lane looked like a road rather than a rumor. Her hands buzzed after she released the handles. Blisters had opened beneath her gloves. She sat on the farmhouse steps, avoiding the sagging corner, and ate cold soup from the can because washing a spoon felt extravagant. Inside, the refrigerator hummed and the kitchen light glowed. That night, while moving the scarred cabinet away from a damp patch in the living room, Leah found 2 ledgers wedged behind it. They were not hidden, only dropped. The covers had softened with age. The first contained equipment maintenance in Samuel's square handwriting, oil changes, belt sizes, fence repairs. The second held harvest counts by year: Limber Twig 47 bushels, Wine Sap 63, Virginia Beauty 21, Hail Loss. Beside several entries were initials Leah recognized as her grandmother's, MC. The record stopped the year after her grandmother died. Later pages held only brief notes, spaced years apart. Spring line flushed, north fence down again, taxes paid. In 2019, the same year Samuel ordered the certified copy of the deed, he had written, "Easement clear, lower gate chained, 10 arc, black still sound. Leah carried the ledger into the kitchen and spread it beneath the yellow light. The orchard had not simply survived around the house. Samuel had counted it year after year, even when the numbers became too small to call a harvest. She took the ledger outside the next morning when Owen returned for his mower. He inspected the machine before speaking to her. Fuel, full, deck, clean. He ran one finger beneath the housing and showed her a smear of wet grass. That is cruel. That is grass. Leah handed him the ledger. 10 Arkansas Black were still sound 7 years ago. Owen read the entry, then looked toward the terraces. Could be fewer now. Could be 10. Optimism again. Documented optimism. He turned several pages. His expression changed when he saw the older harvest numbers. Your grandmother kept the picking crews fed out of that kitchen, he said. Biscuits at 5 in the morning. She'd insult your speed while putting another one on your plate. You knew her? Everybody around here knew Margaret. And Grandpa? Owen closed the ledger. Samuel quit coming much after she died. Your aunt wanted him to sell. Had a buyer once, I think. What happened? Samuel happened. Leah waited. Owen handed the ledger back. You want to know whether those apples are worth picking? Yes. Then stop mowing and start sorting. Good windfalls in one bin, rot in another. Nothing with fresh animal damage. For what? I'll call a cider maker I know. No promises. Leah looked over the wet terraces, at the fruit hidden beneath acres of weeds. How much do they take? Owen fitted his cap. More than you can pick alone. Alone turned out to be exactly how Leah began. Owen delivered 20 stackable harvest bins and set them beside the nearest terrace. The cider mill will take sound drops, he said. No rot, no glass, no fresh animal bites, no fruit that smells fermented. How do I know if it smells fermented? You'll know. What if I don't? You'll know after the first one breaks in your hand. He gave her until Friday afternoon. The mill's truck would already be collecting from Mercer Orchard and could make one extra stop if Leah had at least 30 full bins. Fewer than that would not justify the climb up her lane. Leah counted the bins. You said 20. I did. They want 30. I have another 10 if you fill these. That feels unnecessarily motivational. It's how I protect my bins from optimism. She started after her morning client visit. The orchard floor was still wet, and hidden limbs caught her boots. She learned quickly that an apple could look perfect on one side and contain a brown collapse on the other. Some were light and hollow from insects. Some burst with the exact fermented smell Owen had promised, sweet and sour at once. By noon, she had filled 2 bins. At that pace, she would finish shortly after retirement. She called Owen. Is there a trick? Bend faster. That isn't a trick. Then no. He hung up. Leah tied an old bath towel around her waist as a sling, filled it with apples, and emptied them into the bins, so she would not have to stand after every piece of fruit. The method improved her speed and destroyed the towel. At 3, Miriam called with an extra evening visit. Leah looked at the terraces. I can take it. She washed at the spring house, changed shirts in the farmhouse, and drove to town with orchard dirt still beneath her fingernails. The client needed supper warmed, laundry transferred, and company while a storm moved across the television weather map. Leah stayed 13 minutes past her paid time because the woman was afraid of thunder and pretended she was not. When Leah returned to Carter Ridge after dark, her flashlight found 6 full bins and 14 empty ones. She kept picking. By Thursday morning, her lower back hurt when she breathed deeply. She had filled 17 bins. Owen brought the remaining 10 and left a hand truck without comment. At 11, Eric's SUV climbed the lane. He stepped out wearing jeans, work boots too clean to be trusted, and a University of Tennessee sweatshirt. He looked at the bins. Mom says you're trying to sell rotten apples. Mom has a gift for description. Are they rotten? Some. Those go in the other pile. He walked to the reject heap, where apples had collapsed into a fragrant brown mound. That's a lot of waste. That's a lot of years. Nobody picked them. Eric shoved his hands into his pockets. You need help? Leah straightened slowly. Why? Because I asked if you need help. What does the help cost? Nothing. The red toolbox. I have toolboxes. The cedar. I don't want your broken cedar. Then what? Eric's mouth hardened. You know, most people just say yes. Most people weren't evicted by your mother. And there it is. What? The thing you're going to say every time I speak for the next 20 years. Leah turned away and picked up an apple. It had a clean bruise on one side. She placed it in her sling. Eric watched her collect 3 more. I'm sorry, he said. The words were quiet enough that she almost mistook them for wind through the grass. She looked at him. I should have stopped her, he continued. Or at least asked where you were going. Yes. I thought you had a plan. I had a funeral. I know. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not apologizing for Mom. She can do that herself. That might take 20 years. Then you'll still have something to say when I speak. Leah handed him a pair of gloves. Eric worked harder than she expected and complained more. He tried picking 2 apples at a time, squeezed one rotten, and stood with pulp running between his fingers. Oh, that's evil. You knew after the first one. What? Nothing. He learned the sorting rules. By lunch, they had filled 4 bins together. He found a wine sap that Owen would have rejected for cider and polished it on his shirt. Can I eat this? It's your risk. Eric bit into it and nodded. That's a good apple. You sound surprised. I expected old fruit to taste old. Grandpa was old. Grandpa tasted terrible. Leah laughed so suddenly she inhaled wrong and began coughing. Eric looked pleased. Worth it. They sat beneath the tree and ate apples with peanut butter crackers Leah had brought from a client's unopened snack box. From the terrace, the barn roof showed its patchwork of rust and the blue tarp visible through one missing section. Mom hates this place, Eric said. She remembers a lot for someone who hates it. That's probably why. Leah waited. Eric rubbed dirt from an apple stem. Grandma died here. In the house? No. Hospital. But she got sick while they were still living here. Mom did most of the driving. Grandpa wouldn't admit he couldn't handle the farm, and Grandma both. That changed the picture without making anyone kinder. Leah imagined Denise younger, driving the same curving roads with groceries or medicine, being told everything was fine until it plainly was not. Why did he tell her he sold it? I asked. She says he told her it was dealt with. That could mean anything. Exactly. Grandpa's favorite kind of answer. Did she ever check? Eric shrugged. Why would she? He moved into town. Somebody cut the hay for a few years and the gate stayed chained. Leah looked toward the lower pasture. Who cut it? No idea. Owen might know. Eric glanced down the terrace toward Mercer's boundary. Mercer? Is that the guy with the orchard? Yes. Mom says Grandpa thought he was too clever. Grandpa thought can openers were too clever. Electric ones are. They worked until Eric received a call. He looked at the screen and sighed. Her? Her? He answered. I'm at the farm. Denise's voice was loud enough that Leah heard the shape, if not every word. I'm helping Leah. A sharper burst followed. With apples. He held the phone away from his ear. I understand they belong to her. Leah looked at him. Eric turned his back and walked several paces downhill. No, I didn't ask about the deed. When he returned, his face had closed again. She wants a copy, Leah said. She says an attorney needs to review it. She can get one from the county. I told her, thank you. Don't make it a big moment. I wasn't. You were looking at me like it was. He pulled off his gloves. I have to go. The 17 bins had become 23. Before leaving, Eric helped move the full ones to the lane. At his SUV, Leah said, the tractor attachment in your trailer came from here. It was in Grandpa's town garage. Then why did you say some of the things came from the farm? Because they did. Bring it back. Eric opened his door. Grandpa told me I could have it. When? A long time ago. That sounds like Mom's version of tools. It fits my tractor. You don't own a tractor. That still isn't the point. No, the point is you think the deed makes every conversation end where you want. He got in and shut the door. Leah stepped back. "Thank you for the apples." Eric stared through the windshield, then nodded once and drove away. The next morning brought hard, clean sunlight and a thin rim of frost in the pasture. Leah had 7 bins left to fill. She picked until her fingers lost feeling. Owen appeared after breakfast, inspected the sorted fruit, and silently removed 12 apples from the top of one bin. "What's wrong with those?" "Fresh animal damage. That mark is tiny. So are many animals." He joined her without offering. Together they moved down the terrace, working separate trees. Owen could identify varieties from 20 feet away and bad fruit by touch. He cut samples with his pocket knife, setting aside the best examples. "These aren't cider?" Leah asked. "These are for figuring out what you have. Does knowing change the price?" "Eventually. Today you're selling mixed windfalls." They filled the last bin at 120. The truck arrived at 2, grinding carefully up the cleared lane. The driver tested several bins, rejected one for too much decay, and weighed the rest with a portable scale. Leah watched the numbers accumulate on his clipboard. 3,180 pounds. At 12 cents a pound after the collection charge, her first harvest brought $341.60. Leah stared at the receipt. "That's it?" she asked before she could stop herself. The driver looked apologetic. "Windfalls don't pay table fruit money." Owen leaned against the truck. "How much did you expect?" "I didn't expect anything. It just felt heavier than that. Everything does when you lift it yourself." The truck carried the apples away. Empty impressions remained in the grass where the bins had sat. Owen gave Leah an envelope with the receipt and a check that would clear after the mill processed delivery. "Don't spend it before it exists. I already need roofing screws. You need insurance. I need both. You need food that didn't come from a can." She folded the receipt carefully. "You're very relaxed with other people's money." Easiest kind. Before leaving, Owen placed 3 apples on the porch rail. A deep red Arkansas black, a mottled wine sap, and a yellow-red apple from the split tree. "Virginia Beauty?" Leah asked. "Looks like it. You're sure? Ask me after pruning." That evening, Leah deposited the check through her phone and entered the amount in the old harvest ledger. Beneath Samuel's last note, she wrote in her own hand, "Mixed windfalls, 3,180 pounds. First sale. Not enough, but real." She looked at the sentence, then crossed out, "Not enough." The page read, "First sale. Real." The check took 3 business days to clear. The roofing supplier did not accept sentiment during the delay. Leah bought screws with cash, paid Owen for the used metal, and postponed the insurance deposit until the cider money appeared in her account. Owen brought the roofing sheets on a flat wagon. One was green, the other faded red. "Now the roof has 7 colors," Leah said. "You're counting the tarp. It's visible. Not after today." They waited until the morning frost burned away. Owen showed her how to work from the stable side of the loft, fastening temporary braces beneath the damaged section. He climbed onto the lower slope wearing a safety harness and refused to let Leah follow. "I own the barn," she said. "Gravity doesn't check deeds." Leah stayed inside, passing screws and tools through the open boards. Wind moved through the loft hard enough to lift her braid. Below, the stone stalls looked farther away than they had from the ladder. When Owen removed the blue tarp, cold sunlight poured through the hole. For a moment, the sky filled the roof. Then the first metal sheet slid into place, green against rust. The second overlapped it. Owen fastened the edges, replaced 2 rotted purlins, and sealed the worst gap near the ridge. The repair covered only one corner. Other sheets still needed screws, and half the guttering lay in weeds. But when afternoon rain crossed the ridge, the patched section stayed quiet and dry. Leah stood in the loft listening. "You expecting applause?" Owen asked from the ladder. "I'm expecting dripping. Give the rest of the roof time." She paid him for the metal. He refused money for labor. "I'm not charity," Leah said. "No, you're an inexperienced neighbor who held the ladder and did what she was told. That sounds expensive. You can help me pack late apples next week. How many hours? We'll know when we're done." It was the first arrangement at Carter Ridge that felt like trade rather than rescue. The insurance company accepted photographs of the roof repair, the cleared lane, and the energized downstairs circuits. They excluded the barn's contents, limited water damage, and charged an amount that made Leah reread the word annual to make sure it did not say monthly. She paid the first installment. The farm became insurable at 10:08 on a Tuesday morning while Leah sat in her car outside Mrs. Lang's house. The confirmation arrived by email. There was no certificate to hang on a wall, only a policy number and 16 pages of exclusions. Leah printed the first page at the public library and placed it in the document sleeve with the deed and receipts. Samuel would have approved of the sleeve. That thought irritated her all afternoon. At Carter Ridge, she carried the Bible to the kitchen table and opened it where the deed had rested. The leather pocket inside the back cover was stretched to the shape of the folded paper. Samuel had put it there deliberately. He had ordered the certified copy in 2019, protected it, and never spoken one useful sentence about it. He had watched Leah cancel her apartment lease. He had watched her move boxes into his spare room. He had watched Denise refer to the arrangement as temporary. Any one of those days he could have said, "There is a house on a ridge. It needs work, but it will be yours." Instead, he had asked whether Leah's car insurance included roadside assistance. She shut the Bible harder than necessary. The next Saturday, Denise called while Leah was clearing vines from the porch foundation. "I understand you sold fruit." Leah cut a blackberry cane and watched it spring away from the siding. "News travels," Eric told me. "He helped. He should not have." "Why?" "Because you're treating this like a game." My back disagrees. You sold apples from trees your grandfather maintained for decades. He hadn't harvested them in years. That doesn't change where they came from. Is this about the money? No. It was almost certainly about the money, though not the amount. $341 would not transform anyone's life. It transformed the farm from a burden Denise could dismiss into something capable of producing a receipt. Leah set the pruning shears on the porch rail. "What do you want?" "I want you to slow down until the deed has been reviewed." "Reviewed for what?" "Dad's capacity, the circumstances, whether he understood the consequences. He signed it 7 years ago. He was 79. He still drove. He still did his own taxes. Being competent in one area doesn't mean he understood every legal instrument put in front of him. Who put it in front of him?" "I don't know." "You make it sound like I did." Denise went quiet. Leah felt the silence reach through the phone. "I didn't know," she said. "You know I didn't. I know you say that. I found it the night you put me out." "Stop using that phrase. It's what happened. I did not put you on the street. Where did you think I went?" "To a motel. To a friend," Eric offered. "After." Denise exhaled. "This constant counting is ugly, Leah. You only call it ugly when the count reaches you." A car passed faintly on Denise's end. She might have been at Samuel's town house, standing near the front window where he used to complain about traffic. "I took care of my parents before you were old enough to remember," she said. "I drove Mother to appointments from this farm. I argued with insurance companies. I cleaned that house while Dad told everybody he was managing fine. When she died, he stopped coming here, but he would not sell. I found someone willing to buy it as is. Dad accused me of trying to profit." "Were you?" "No." The answer carried old injury. I wanted him out from under it. Taxes, mowing, repairs. He was paying Owen Mercer to clear the easement even though he barely visited. Leah looked down the lane. "Owen cleared it?" "For several years. Dad said access had to remain usable. I told him access to an empty house was not a moral principle. In 2019, Samuel had recorded the easement clarification and ordered the deed copy. He had protected the road not merely for himself, but for Leah. Did he say why? He said it was dealt with. And you assumed that meant sold. I assumed he had finally made a sensible decision. The words came out before Denise could soften them. Leah looked at the farmhouse, the repaired corner of the barn, the vines piled beside the porch. Giving it to me wasn't sensible. That isn't what I meant. It is what you keep meaning. She ended the call. Anger carried her through another hour of clearing before a thorn tore her glove and opened the skin beneath her thumb. Blood welled bright and immediate. Leah went inside, washed the cut, and sat at the kitchen table with a bandage wrapped too tightly around her hand. Samuel's Bible remained where she had left it. She wanted him alive for 5 minutes so she could be furious properly. She wanted to demand why he trusted a recording office more than his own voice. Why he thought paper could explain what he had been unwilling to say. Why he left Leah to discover both a home and the cost of it on the worst night of her life. The dead were protected from follow-up questions. It was one of their least generous qualities. Owen honked from the lane. Leah stepped outside. A dump truck sat below the bend, loaded with coarse stone. Owen stood beside it, arguing with the driver about axle weight. "You ordered gravel?" Leah asked. "You did. I ordered 6 tons. That's 6 tons. It looks like a mountain. Stone is deceptive." The driver refused to climb beyond the washout until the base was reinforced. He dumped the load in a gray heap just inside the entrance and gave Leah a business card for the day the lane became worthy of his truck. For 3 afternoons, Leah moved stone with a shovel and Owen's wheelbarrow. The work was slower than apple picking and less forgiving. She laid larger rock into the washout, packed smaller gravel over it, and built a shallow crown so rain would run toward the ditch instead of down the tire tracks. Owen corrected the slope twice. Leah made him move the second section himself. He did. The next rain left 2 puddles but did not carry the road away. Owen drove his pickup to the farmhouse and back down again, then pronounced the lane less bad. Leah wrote the gravel cost in Samuel's maintenance ledger. Under it, she added, "Easement passable to ordinary truck in dry weather." The qualification felt honest. November narrowed the days. Leah left for client visits before sunrise and returned in darkness. She sealed the dry bedroom window with clear plastic, cleaned the wood stove, and paid for a chimney inspection she could barely afford. The flue was sound. The stove door gasket was not. She replaced it and bought seasoned firewood from a farm 2 ridges over. The first fire smoked into the room because she forgot to open the damper. The second caught properly. Heat spread from the stove in slow circles, warming the living room before climbing the stairs. Leah slept beneath 3 quilts in the dry bedroom. She kept the other rooms closed. The upstairs bathroom remained unusable, but the downstairs water ran clear after the laboratory results came back safe for bacteria and common contaminants. Pressure was weak. She learned to fill a basin rather than wait beneath the shower head. At Mercer Orchard, she worked off Owen's roofing labor by sorting late Arkansas black apples in a packing shed. His crop was cleaner and larger than hers. He rejected fruit for marks Leah would have considered cosmetic. "People buy with their eyes," he said. "They eat with their mouths. Restaurants pay with checks." He showed her how to wrap sound fruit, how to leave air between stacked trays, and how stem punctures could spoil an entire layer. The lesson made Carter Ridge's surviving trees seem both more valuable and more demanding. "You'll prune after the coldest weather," he said. "Not all at once. How many can we save? We? You said to bring you leaves, fruit, photographs, and patience. I didn't say I'd do the pruning. You implied. I'm going to regret teaching you that word." By December, the barn roof had survived 2 windstorms. The lane held. The spring ran. Leah had power downstairs, heat from the stove, and 1 bedroom that stayed dry. Then the temperature dropped 14 degrees in a single night. At 2 in the morning, Leah woke to a sound like someone pouring a bucket onto the floor below. She ran downstairs barefoot. Water sprayed from the kitchen wall where the pipe entered beneath the sink, striking the cabinets, the floor, and the electrical outlet in a glittering fan. The shutoff handle beside the back steps was frozen solid. Leah grabbed the mixing bowl out of habit. It filled before she could set it down. The bowl hit the floor and rolled under the table. Leah lunged for the electrical panel. Water had already reached the baseboard beneath the outlet. She switched off the kitchen circuit, then the main breaker, because she did not trust the labels enough to gamble barefoot. The refrigerator died. Darkness swallowed the room. She found her flashlight upstairs, pulled on boots without socks, and ran outside in her thermal shirt. The cold struck like a flat hand. Frost silvered the porch and path. At the frozen shutoff, she wrapped both hands around the handle and forced it until the metal bit into her palms. It did not move. Water continued pounding inside the kitchen. Leah ran downhill toward the spring house. Frozen weeds cracked beneath her boots. The stone floor inside was slick, the shallow basin still flowing. She swept the flashlight beam across the pipes, found a valve near the outlet, and turned it clockwise. The valve resisted. She braced one boot against the wall and used both hands. "Come on!" Metal squealed. The handle moved a quarter turn, then another. Water slowed inside the outlet pipe. Leah kept turning until the flow stopped. By the time she reached the farmhouse again, a shallow pool covered half the kitchen. She threw every towel she owned onto the floor. She used the galvanized bucket, the chipped bowl, and a dustpan to scoop water out the back door. The lower cabinet doors swelled before dawn. Water had seeped beneath the vinyl flooring and into the wall. At 5:12, she called Owen. He answered on the third ring. "Who's hurt?" "The kitchen." Silence. "Pipe burst," she added. "I understood. I'm putting on boots." He arrived with a wet vacuum, 2 box fans, a portable heater, and the expression of a man determined not to say he had warned anyone. "The power's off," Leah said. "Good. The water's off. Better. The kitchen's ruined." Owen knelt beside the sink and aimed his flashlight into the cabinet. Not yet. He opened the wall behind the pipe with a pry bar, cutting away damp plaster in a rough rectangle. The copper line had split near the sill where cold air entered around an old opening. "You heated the kitchen?" he asked. The wood stove was going. That wall didn't know. Together they pulled the soaked insulation and carried it outside. Owen ran a heavy extension cord from his truck's generator to the wet vacuum. Leah moved furniture and lifted the edges of flooring while he extracted water. By 8, the standing water was gone. The kitchen looked worse. A section of wall lay open. The sink cabinet had been dismantled, and 2 strips of flooring curled upward. Owen made coffee on Leah's camp stove. "You got somewhere to be?" he asked. "Mrs. Lang at 9. "You're going to work?" "She can't make her own breakfast. Someone else can. Someone else folded her washcloths wrong." Owen stared at her. "That matters to her." "Call your supervisor?" Leah called Miriam. Another aide could cover, but Miriam's voice carried strain. "You said you'd be reliable. I have water damage. Are you hurt?" "No." "Then handle it." "But I can't keep rebuilding the schedule around you." The line disconnected. Leah sat on the living room floor with the phone in her hand. The wood stove ticked behind her. One wet sock steamed on the hearth. Owen held out a cup of coffee. "She sounds pleasant. She sounds like someone with clients waiting. You have a house flooding." "I have bills. That house will produce plenty." The plumber charged emergency rates to replace 6 feet of pipe, install a proper interior shutoff, and insulate the opening. He found 2 other vulnerable sections beneath the kitchen and recommended replacing the entire run before another freeze. Leah approved only what was necessary to restore water. The insurance company reminded her that limited water damage coverage carried a deductible larger than the repair. The warped cabinet and flooring were hers to solve. After the plumber left, Owen pointed the box fans into the open wall. "Keep these running 3 days. Cabinet doors open. Stove warm, not roaring. Check the crawl space for standing water. You say that like I know how. Wear coveralls. Bring a light. Try not to meet anything. Your instructions always weaken at the important part." He removed his cap and looked at her more carefully. "Come stay at my place tonight. I've got a spare room." Leah shook her head. "My sister uses it twice a year. Clean sheets." "No, this isn't Pride if the floor's wet. I'm staying." Owen replaced his cap. "Then keep your boots on." He left the generator until power could safely be restored. Leah crawled beneath the kitchen with a flashlight between her teeth and found damp soil, but no pooled water. By evening, her shoulders ached from hauling ruined material. The house smelled of wet plaster, hot dust, and coffee. Eric arrived after dark carrying 2 pizzas. I heard about the pipe. From who? Mom. I didn't call her. I called Owen to ask about the attachment. Leah stared at him. You have Owen's number? Mom found it in Grandpa's papers. And you called him about equipment you won't return? Eric lifted the pizza boxes. Can we fight after food? He ate on the living room floor because the kitchen table was covered with tools. Leah ate 2 slices before noticing how hungry she was. Eric examined the removed cabinet and open wall. You can't live like this. The water's back. That isn't a definition of living. It was yesterday. He wiped grease from his fingers. Mom has an idea. Of course she does. She's coming tomorrow. I don't want her here. It's not really the kind of conversation to have over the phone. That sentence has never led anywhere good. Eric folded his slice. Just listen before you get angry. I can do both. Denise arrived at 10 the next morning carrying a thermos, a paper shopping bag, and a leather folder. She stepped into the kitchen and stopped. Oh, Leah. The sympathy was worse than criticism. The floor will dry. Denise looked at the exposed wall. This happened once when I was 28. Same side of the house. You knew the pipe froze? It was replaced. Apparently not enough of it. Dad did the work himself. Of course he had. Denise set the shopping bag on the table. Inside were wool socks, hand warmers, canned stew, a bottle of bleach, and 2 rolls of paper towels. I didn't know what you needed, she said. Thank you. They stood among the fans and listened to the generator outside. Denise opened the leather folder. The townhouse is under contract. That was fast. It's a good offer. Closing after the 1st of the year. Leah looked at the papers inside the folder. What does that have to do with me? I can give you $15,000. Eric leaned against the living room doorway. He knew the amount already. For what? Leah asked. For the farm. It isn't for sale. Listen first. The property needs more than you can possibly put into it. Roof, plumbing, wiring, road maintenance. You've used your savings. You've missed work. How do you know that? Eric told me what Owen said. Owen didn't say anything about my work. Then Eric inferred it. The point is, this is not sustainable. Denise removed a document from the folder. This is a quitclaim deed. The money would come from my share of the townhouse when it closes. You could rent an apartment, replace that car, return to full-time work, and you would own Carter Ridge. It would be back with the immediate family while we determine what to do. I am immediate family. You know what I mean? Yes, Leah said. I do. Denise's cheeks colored. This is not an insult. $15,000 is more cash than that place has produced in years. It produced apples. It produced $300 after you worked yourself sick. I'm not sick. You were barefoot outside at 2 in the morning turning off a frozen spring line. Leah looked at Eric. He raised both hands. Owen was descriptive. Denise pushed the quitclaim forward. You said you wanted somewhere stable. This gives you that. For one weak, vivid moment, Leah saw the apartment the money could buy her time to find. White walls, heat from vents, a shower with pressure, a parking space that did not wash downhill. She could return to regular shifts. She could sleep without listening for roof metal. She could buy food without calculating it against screws. How long do I have to decide? Denise's face softened with relief. Until the townhouse closes. But sooner would help us plan. Us. You don't need to make every word a trap. I learned from paperwork. Denise left the document but took the leather folder. Before going, she stood at the kitchen door and looked toward the orchard. I'm not trying to take something good from you, she said. I'm trying to stop you from mistaking suffering for proof that you belong. The sentence stayed after her SUV disappeared. Leah placed the quitclaim beside Samuel's Bible. 2 documents, 2 versions of rescue. One dead man had given her work without warning. One living woman offered an escape that required surrender. She spent the day checking the fans and imagining what $15,000 would solve. That night, wind rattled the plastic over the bedroom window. The farmhouse felt mean and unfinished. Leah slept for an hour, woke cold, and went downstairs to feed the stove. The ledger lay beneath the quitclaim. She opened it to the page where Samuel had recorded the spring repair, then to her own first sale. First sale, real. It was not a command to stay. That mattered. Samuel had made enough decisions in silence. Leah would not turn his deed into one more instruction she obeyed because care and duty had become impossible to separate. She walked through the dark kitchen, listening to the fans. She touched the repaired pipe, the dry edge of the wall, and the scarred table her grandmother had once painted around. The farm was not asking whether she could endure it. It was asking whether she wanted the life that repairing it might make. By morning, the floor had begun to dry. Leah signed nothing. She put the quitclaim into the document sleeve, drove to Denise's house, and handed it back across the threshold. "I'm not keeping Carter Ridge because Grandpa chose me," she said. "I'm keeping it because I choose it." Denise held the unsigned paper against her chest. "You'll regret this," probably more than once. Leah turned toward her car. Behind her, Denise said, "I really was trying to help." Leah looked back. Her aunt stood barefoot on a heated floor, wearing an old robe and an expression Leah could not dismiss as greed. "I know," Leah said. Then she went home to finish drying the kitchen. The kitchen floor flattened as it dried, though two seams remained curled like raised eyebrows. Leah removed the ruined base cabinet, scrubbed the wall framing, and replaced the wet insulation with Owen watching from the doorway. "More around the pipe," he said. "If I pack it tighter, I'll crush it." "Then don't pack it tighter. You just said more. I said around, not against." She lowered the insulation. "You could do this. I could also leave." She put the insulation where he pointed. The replacement cabinet came from a salvage store and was 3 inches narrower than the old one. Leah filled the gap beside it with a homemade shelf for cleaning supplies. The doors were maple, entirely wrong for the pale green kitchen, but they closed properly. She sanded the damaged section of floor and covered it with a braided mat from Samuel's townhouse, one Eric had included among the returned farm things. The room no longer looked untouched. That helped. The quitclaim offer changed how Leah made decisions. Before, every repair had felt like a test of whether she was capable enough to deserve the deed. After refusing the money, she stopped asking what Samuel expected and began asking what the farm needed from her now. It did not need all 62 acres restored by spring. It needed water protected from another freeze, a safe circuit for the refrigerator, a lane that stayed passable, and enough income to carry itself without consuming every hour Leah could sell elsewhere. She wrote those 4 things on the back of an insurance envelope and taped it above the kitchen table. When Owen saw it, he added, "Don't fall off barn" beneath the list. Leah crossed it out. He wrote it again in larger letters. The weather settled into hard January cold. Leah wrapped the exposed pipes, banked straw bales along the worst section of foundation, and learned to drain the vulnerable kitchen line on nights the temperature fell into the teens. She took regular client shifts again, including Mrs. Lang's mornings and 3 evening visits each week. Miriam stopped sounding cautious when Leah answered the phone. Her paychecks went first to groceries, gasoline, and the repaired plumbing. What remained disappeared into fencing supplies, stove wood, and a savings envelope marked taxes. The orchard's first check stayed recorded in the ledger even after every dollar of it was gone. On clear afternoons, Owen began teaching her to prune. He chose one of the surviving Arkansas black trees near the middle terrace and stood beneath it with a folding saw. "You're not shaping a shrub," he said. "You're deciding where light goes." The tree had not been pruned in years. Upright shoots crowded its center. Dead limbs rubbed against living wood. Leah saw only a tangle. "Which branch first? You tell me." "That one." "Why? It looks unnecessary. That's how people lose load-bearing walls. It's a branch." "Same principle. Explain your cut." She pointed to a dead limb crossing the center. No leaves last year. Bark is split. It's rubbing the lower branch. Owen handed her the saw. That one. The first cut took longer than she expected. Her shoulders burned. When the limb finally dropped, the empty space changed the entire tree. Again, Owen said. They worked slowly, never removing as much as Leah wanted. Owen marked some trees with blue ribbon and others with orange. Blue meant save this season. Orange meant wait and reassess. Trees too damaged to justify the work received no ribbon. Leah disliked the unmarked ones. That wine sap still had fruit, she said. 6 apples and half a trunk. It's alive. So are the vines strangling it. She looked at him. You said these trees are stubborn. I didn't say stubbornness creates capacity. Leah touched the cracked trunk. The lesson felt unfairly personal. They selected 42 trees across 3 manageable terraces. 10 appeared to be Arkansas black, 8 wine sap, 3 likely Virginia beauty, several limber twig, and the rest uncertain until blossom and fruit confirmed them. The remaining orchard would not be abandoned, Owen said, but it would not be promised what Leah could not deliver. She wrote each tagged tree into a new section of the ledger. Eric visited on the first mild Saturday in February. He came without the trailer and carried a cardboard box into the kitchen. What did Mom return now? Leah asked. Nothing. This is from me. Inside were 2 heavy-duty pipe heating cables, a digital temperature alarm, and a package of foam insulation. Leah looked up. Are these stolen? Only from the internet. You didn't have to buy this. I know. Is it payment for the tractor attachment? His mouth tightened. No. Then bring that back too. I'm using it. You don't get to keep something because it fits your life better. Eric leaned against the table. You really know how to receive a gift. I said you didn't have to. Which is Carter for thank you, I guess. Leah set the insulation aside. Thank you, you're welcome. He installed the temperature alarm under the kitchen sink and showed her how it sent an alert to her phone. The work took 20 minutes. He spent the next hour following her through the farmhouse, pointing out everything that still needed repair. You've got plaster cracking upstairs. I'm aware. This porch post is leaning. I'm aware. The upstairs toilet contains a snakeskin. I am deeply aware. He grinned. Still there? I haven't checked. At the barn, he admired the mismatched roof patch and tested the repaired hasp. Owen do this? We did. You get on the roof? No. Good. You sound like him. That's upsetting. They walked to the lower pasture where the old wire fence sagged between cedar posts. Eric pushed one strand down with his boot. What are you doing with this field? Trying not to let it become forest. You need animals. I need a fence before animals. Grandpa had cattle here when I was little. You remember coming? A few times. Grandma let me sit on the tractor. Leah waited for more, but Eric nudged a stone from the grass. You were probably too young, he said. The words were careless. They still hurt. I was 7 when she died. Yeah. Nobody brought me before that? I don't know, Leah. Maybe they did. She knew they had not. The farm did not exist anywhere in her memories, not even as a blurred car ride. Eric examined the fence again. I've got a post driver. At your house? Yes. Does it belong to you? He looked at her. I bought it. Then I would like to borrow it. He laughed. You are exhausting. He delivered it the next weekend, but not the tractor attachment. By March, thawing ground softened beneath Leah's boots. Owen approached her with a proposition while they replaced a corner post in the lower pasture. I need extra spring grazing, he said. Your lower 12 acres could carry a small group if the water holds and the fence keeps them off the lane. What kind of group? Cattle. How small? 8 cows, maybe 10. Do cows respect recorded easements more than some people? He offered a seasonal lease from April through October. The amount was modest but monthly, enough to cover the insurance payment and most of the expected property tax if Leah kept it in reserve. Owen would maintain the pasture water trough, mow the rough edges, and be responsible for his animals. Leah would provide access and repair the boundary fence before turnout. She read the one-page lease twice. "You made this? My insurance agent insists I put common sense in writing. What if the fence fails? Depends who failed it. What if a cow gets into the orchard? We remove the cow and argue about the tree. What if all 10 get out? Then we argue while walking." Leah took the lease to Celia's office, not for legal advice, as Celia reminded her before Leah finished asking, but to confirm the pasture boundaries against the recorded plat. Celia placed a ruler along the line. Lower pasture ends here. Springhouse remains outside it. Easement curves along the eastern edge, so he can graze without blocking access, if his cows read the plat. That's what he said. Then you have consistent neighbors. Leah signed the lease. Fence repair consumed the rest of March. She and Owen reset leaning posts, stretched new wire, and replaced the sagging gate. Eric's post driver saved them hours. Leah returned it clean. "Did you fuel it?" he asked when he came for it. "It doesn't take fuel. Owen's rules are flexible. He has specific rules for specific equipment." "You defend him now?" "I understand him." Eric placed the driver in his SUV. "That must be nice." She studied his face, but he shut the hatch. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. That expression isn't nothing." He gave her a tired smile. "You sound like Mom." For once, the comparison did not feel entirely insulting. The cattle arrived on a warm morning in April. Owen backed a stock trailer through the lower gate while Leah stood clear, pretending she was not nervous. 8 black cows stepped down one by one, paused in the grass, then spread across the pasture with calm indifference to everything Leah had repaired for them. One walked directly toward the new fence. "Is she testing it?" Leah asked. "She's looking. She's leaning. She weighs 1,200 pounds. Looking has consequences." The wire held. Within a week, the rough pasture began to change. Hooves pressed last year's growth down. The cows grazed the new grass and kept brush from reclaiming the fence line. Owen checked the trough each morning on his way to the orchard. His first lease payment arrived by check, labeled Carter Ridge Spring Grazing. Leah entered it in the ledger. Steady income looked unimpressive on paper. That was part of its beauty. The orchard bloomed late that month. It began with the Virginia Beauty near the barn, pale pink buds opening white along the surviving half of the split tree. Then the wine saps flowered. The Arkansas Blacks followed across the terraces until the 3 restored rows appeared dusted with light. Leah stood among them at sunrise before work. Bees moved from branch to branch. The farmhouse, barn, springhouse, pasture, and lane were all visible from the slope, no longer separate emergencies, but parts of one working place. Owen joined her carrying pruning shears. "Don't touch anything," Leah said. "I wasn't going to. You're holding shears. I came prepared for disappointment." Below them, a familiar SUV turned onto the gravel lane. Denise drove slowly past the lower gate and the grazing cattle. She parked beside the farmhouse but did not get out. Leah watched through the blossoms. Her aunt had not visited since the day she offered $15,000. After a full minute, the driver's door opened. Denise stepped into the spring light and looked up at the orchard. Owen looked from Denise to Leah. "I should check the upper fence," he said. "The upper fence is fine," Leah replied. "Then this will be quick." He walked away carrying the pruning shears he had not intended to use. Denise remained beside her SUV. She wore low boots this time and an old canvas jacket Leah had never seen. The jacket softened her shape, though not her posture. "You have cows," she called uphill. "They're Owen's." One of them stared at me. "They do that." Denise looked over the lower pasture, where the 8 black cows grazed behind the repaired wire. Dad never liked cattle near the road. He thought drivers slowed down to judge them. That sounds like Grandpa. He also thought the cattle knew. Leah descended through the orchard. Blossoms brushed her sleeves, dropping petals onto the denim. Denise watched her come. "You cut your hair." "No, the braid looks shorter." It's higher. Oh. They stood beside the farmhouse without hugging. The porch is better, Denise said. Leah had replaced the two worst boards and braced the leaning post. The sagging corner still waited for a proper repair. It holds people now. Was that not true before? Not reliably. Denise glanced down at her boots as if reconsidering where she stood. What brings you here? I was driving. This road doesn't lead anywhere except here and Owen's Orchard. I was driving to Owen's Orchard. For what? Denise sighed. I wanted to see the farm. Leah waited for her to say more. The town house closed, Denise added. I heard from Eric. We finished clearing it yesterday. Something in her voice made Leah look more closely. Denise's hair was neatly arranged and her lipstick exact, but the skin beneath her eyes looked bruised with fatigue. How was that? Efficient. The word sounded painful. Did you keep the clock? Yes. The realtor didn't make you sell it? Denise met her eyes. I was wrong to label things that day. Leah had not expected the sentence. It opened space, but not enough to fill everything behind it. You were fast, she said. I needed to be. You always need to be. Denise's chin lifted, then lowered. That is fair. They walked around the house. Leah showed her the repaired kitchen wall, the salvaged cabinet, and the new shutoff valve. Denise tested the cabinet door. It doesn't match. It cost $40. I didn't say it was bad. You made the face. I have a face. It does things. Leah smiled despite herself. In the living room, Denise stopped beside the wood stove. She placed one hand on its cold iron top. Mother sat there during her last winter, she said. She'd put her feet on a little stool and tell Dad the fire was too hot. If he let it cool, she'd tell him it was too cold. She sounds difficult. She was. Denise smiled faintly. So was he. You tried to take care of them? The smile disappeared. I tried to organize them. There's a difference, apparently. Who said that? Dad, frequently. Leah leaned against the scarred cabinet. He let me organize him. No, he let you do things for him while pretending they were your idea. That's not the same. The resentment beneath the words was old enough to have roots. He refused to move in with me, Denise continued. He refused assisted living. He refused a daytime aide until you started working fewer hours. Then suddenly you were the only person who knew how he liked his pills arranged. He trusted me. I know. The answer cut differently than disagreement. Denise looked toward the kitchen. I resented you for making it look possible. It wasn't possible, not the way we did it. You managed. I was exhausted. I lost my apartment. I stopped seeing anyone who didn't need something from me. You never told me that. You called me lucky because I didn't pay rent. Denise closed her eyes briefly. Yes. And then you used it against me. Yes. The second admission landed harder. Leah folded her arms, but no defense seemed shaped for a person who was finally agreeing. I should not have made you leave after the funeral, Denise said. I thought if I stopped moving, I would have to understand that he was gone. You were in the room he died in. Your things were everywhere. It felt like you had been given the part of him I couldn't get, and then you were still there after he wasn't. I was still there because I lived there. I know that now. You knew it then. Denise's mouth tightened. I knew the facts. That isn't always the same. Outside, one of the cows bawled. The ordinary sound saved them from answering too quickly. They returned to the orchard. Denise moved more slowly, climbing the terrace, touching branches as she passed. At the split Virginia Beauty, she stopped. Mother loved this one. Owen wasn't sure of the variety until it bloomed. It's Virginia Beauty. Dad planted it the year Eric was born. Leah studied the blossoms along the surviving half. He didn't write that in the ledger. He wouldn't. That would count as sentiment. You know about the ledgers. Mother kept the harvest book until she got sick. Dad wrote numbers. She wrote everything else. There isn't an everything else. Denise looked toward the farmhouse. He probably threw away her notes. The anger in her voice was swift and genuine. Samuel's habit of preserving screws and receipts had not extended to every part of the family other people valued. He kept her initials, Leah said. That sounds like him. The minimum amount of tenderness necessary to deny being tender. They stood under the blossoms. Why did he give it to me? Leah asked. Denise looked across the terraces instead of at her. Because he thought you would keep it. He never asked if I wanted it. No. Dad preferred gratitude without discussion. I'm angry with him. You're allowed. The permission irritated Leah. Then she realized Denise had probably wanted it too. I'm angry he left me to find out after he died. He left me to find out too. Their injuries did not become equal. They became visible beside each other. Denise reached for one flower cluster, stopping before she touched it. This place does look different. It's still a mess. It's an organized mess. That is high praise from you. I mean it. She stayed for coffee. Leah heated it on the electric burner and served it in mismatched mugs at the kitchen table. Denise did not mention the deed, the quitclaim, or the money from the townhouse. Before leaving, she handed Leah a small envelope. I found this in the garage. Inside were 3 photographs. Margaret Carter stood beside the farmhouse holding a bushel basket. Samuel leaned against the barn doors, younger and unsmiling. In the last picture, Denise stood on the porch in work gloves, squinting at the camera. You were here, Leah said. I told you I was. You looked happy. I was 26. Happiness was less complicated. Leah studied the picture. Can I keep these? That's why I brought them. Denise walked to her SUV. At the door, she glanced toward the orchard once more. I was wrong about one other thing, she said. What? You weren't freeloading at Dad's house. The bluntness made Leah's throat tighten. You were working, Denise continued. I should have said that at the funeral. She drove away before Leah answered. The blossoms did not guarantee fruit. Owen reminded Leah of this whenever she admired them too openly. Late frost-browned clusters on the lowest terrace. Rain during bloom reduced pollination on 2 wine saps. By May, small green apples had set along most of the tagged trees, but not in the numbers Leah imagined beneath the April flowers. You thin these, Owen said, removing all but 1 apple from a crowded cluster. Leah stared at the fruit in his palm. We spent months trying to make apples. We're trying to make good apples. That one was good. It was the size of a marble. It had potential. So do the others. The branch cannot carry every possibility. She hated how often horticulture became philosophy around him. They thinned fruit, removed fire-blighted shoots, and mowed between the restored rows. Leah learned to hang simple monitoring traps and record insect pressure. She kept spray use limited and documented. Owen connected her with a regional farm market whose produce manager wanted heritage apples, but only if Leah could supply consistent quality, accurate variety labels, and enough weekly volume to justify shelf space. The market did not care that the trees had survived neglect. Customers would not buy a redemption story if the fruit was bruised. Leah liked the honesty. Summer tightened the farm into routine. Client visits paid her personal bills. The pasture lease covered insurance and built the tax envelope. She repaired the spring house roof with leftover metal and cleared the pipe route so she could inspect it without fighting brambles. Owen's cattle kept the lower field open. Their manure appeared everywhere Leah wanted to walk. The farmhouse gained a working shower downstairs after Leah installed a used enclosure in a corner of the laundry room. Water pressure remained modest, but it no longer required a basin. She painted the salvaged kitchen cabinet a green close to Margaret's mixture. Denise mailed a paint chip from an old drawer front without comment. Eric came twice that summer. The first time, he borrowed the red toolbox after asking. The second, he returned it cleaned and brought nothing else. He still kept the tractor attachment. When Leah mentioned the farm market, his expression changed. So now you're selling retail? Wholesale to retail. Sounds fancy. It means they pay me less than customers pay them. You fixing all this up for a business? I'm fixing it so it works. You could make more if you opened it to weddings. Owen warned me about string lights. Eric looked toward the orchard. "Grandpa gave you a lot more than he realized." "No," Leah said. "He gave me exactly what was recorded. The rest wasn't here yet." Eric laughed, but resentment stayed in the corners of his face. By August, branches bowed beneath darkening Arkansas blacks. Limber twigs swelled green and red. The split Virginia Beauty held only 17 apples, each protected as if the tree had counted them itself. Owen tested starch and firmness, then gave Leah harvest windows in his unreadable handwriting. "You write worse than Grandpa. I work outside." So did he. He was showing off. The farm market agreed to begin with 12 bushels of mixed, labeled heritage fruit. The cider mill would take sound drops and lower-grade apples again. Neither order was large. Together with the pasture income, they could cover the property tax, remaining roofing work, and a winter reserve if the crop held. 3 nights before the first picking date, wind came over the ridge ahead of a thunderstorm. Leah heard apples striking the farmhouse roof, the porch, and the ground. She pulled on boots and ran outside, then stopped because there was nothing to do beneath trees whipping in lightning. By morning, the terraces were littered with fruit. One loaded branch had torn from an Arkansas black. 2 limber twigs had dropped nearly half their crop. The Virginia Beauty still stood, but 7 of its 17 apples lay in the wet grass. Owen arrived without being called. He picked up one fallen apple, cut it open, and examined the bruise. "How bad?" Leah asked. He looked across the orchard. "Bad enough to change the numbers. Do we still have 12 bushels?" "Maybe. Maybe isn't what I promised." "No," Owen said. "It's what the farm promised. You promised to sort." Leah bent and picked up the next apple. Around her, the first harvest waited in the grass, reduced but not gone. Leah picked until the towel around her waist sagged with fruit. Every apple received a decision. Split went to the compost pile. Fresh animal damage went with it. Deep bruising went into cider bins if the flesh remained sound. Clean drops were kept separate from apples still on the trees. The best fruit, firm, unbroken, properly colored, went into padded crates for the farm market. The categories steadied her. By noon, she and Owen had sorted most of the storm fall. 7 market crates sat beneath the barn overhang. 11 cider bins lined the lane. The piles looked both better and worse than Leah feared. Owen lifted an Arkansas black from a market crate and pressed his thumb near the stem. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." "You made a face. I have a face. It does things. That is copyrighted by my aunt." He returned the apple. "It's good. Then why press it? To see if it was good. You could have believed the person who sorted it." Owen looked at her over the crate. "You want me to stop checking?" "No." Then complain quieter. They moved uphill to inspect what remained on the trees. The damaged Arkansas black had lost one major limb, but its trunk was sound. Leah trimmed the torn wood back to a clean junction while Owen held the branch. The cut left a blank opening in the canopy. "It looks lopsided," she said. "It is. Will it live?" "Probably." She had learned not to ask him for promises he could not make. The farm market's produce manager answered on the second call. Leah stood beneath the tree with the notebook against her knee. "The storm reduced the order," she said. "I can guarantee 8 bushels at the grade we discussed. I may have 10 after final picking." A pause followed. Leah looked at the 7 crates below, mentally subtracting every apple Owen might reject. "Can you bring 8 Tuesday morning?" the manager asked. "Yes. Keep varieties separated. No wax, no mixed sizes, within the display cartons." "I understand. If the fruit moves, we'll take more the following week." The call ended without sympathy or celebration. Owen nodded. "Good. I promised 12. You promised what you believed before the weather spoke. I should have been more careful. You were careful. The wind wasn't." A vehicle climbed the lane. Denise's SUV appeared around the bend and parked beside the barn. She got out carrying 2 wicker baskets and a covered metal pan. "I saw the storm damage from the road," she said. "You can't see the orchard from the road." "Owen called me." Leah turned toward him. He examined a tree with great interest. Denise held up the baskets. These were Mother's. Eric found them behind the garage shelving. One handle had been repaired with copper wire. The other basket bore a faded red stripe. Leah recognized it from the photograph Denise had given her. "What's in the pan?" "Biscuits." Owen looked away from the tree. "You bring apple butter?" "No." He looked disappointed. "I didn't know this was a catered emergency," Leah said. "It isn't." Denise set the pan beneath the barn overhang. "Show me what to pick." She remembered more than either of them expected. She twisted fruit upward instead of pulling. She left stems intact. She rejected apples with punctures and checked the ground beneath each step before moving the orchard ladder. "You said you only drove Grandma to appointments," Leah said. "I did other things. You made it sound like you hated the farm. I hated what happened here." Denise placed a wine sap into her basket. "That isn't the same as hating every tree." They worked without trying to settle the difference. In the afternoon, Eric arrived towing the utility trailer. The rusted tractor attachment remained secured near the front. Leah noticed it immediately. "So did I," Denise murmured. Eric climbed out. "Nobody told me this was going to be a family reunion." "I told you to bring crates," Denise said. "You said Leah needed help." "She does." He looked across the sorted fruit. "That's a lot of apples." "It was more yesterday," Leah said. "How much is the market paying?" Denise sighed. "Hello, Eric." "What?" "I'm curious." Leah told him the wholesale rate. He multiplied it quickly. "For all this?" "For the market grade, cider fruit pays less. That still adds up. So do the expenses." He looked toward the repaired barn roof, the cleared terraces, and the cattle grazing below. "You've got the whole place producing something now. The upper 40 acres produce property tax. You know what I mean?" Leah did. Eric no longer saw rot. He saw something organized enough to covet. He unloaded 6 plastic crates and carried them to the orchard. "What do I do?" he asked. Denise handed him a basket. "Try not to squeeze anything." He picked beside them until the late sunlight turned the grass amber. Once, Leah caught him watching Owen identify a tree and write its variety on a crate label. "Grandpa never told me these were special," Eric said. "Grandpa never told anybody anything useful," Denise replied. "He gave Leah a deed. That isn't the same as telling her." Eric looked at Leah. "Still, he gave you the whole system. House, barn, spring, trees, pasture." "No," Leah said. "He gave me neglected parts." "That's a convenient distinction now that they work." Owen stopped writing. Denise placed her basket on the ground. "Eric, I'm just saying she didn't buy the land. She paid for everything you're looking at," Denise said. The words surprised Leah more than Eric. He frowned. "With Apple money? With work? With her own money? With what Dad should have paid her when she was taking care of him?" Nobody moved for a moment. A cow called from the pasture. Another answered. Eric pushed his hands into his pockets. "I helped." "You did," Leah said. It was true, and saying it kept the moment from becoming a public punishment. "You also kept the attachment," Denise added. Eric looked at her. "Whose side are you on?" Denise's face changed. That question caused enough trouble. She picked up her basket and moved to the next tree. Eric stayed another hour. Before leaving, he asked Leah whether she wanted him to haul the market crates in his trailer. "With the attachment?" she asked. "It's strapped down." "No." His jaw tightened. "You're never letting that go. It belongs here." "It's useful to me." "That is still not ownership." He glanced around the orchard. "Fine. Rent a truck." "I have one," Owen said. Eric nodded as if the answer proved something unfair. He drove away with the rusted attachment still on the trailer. Denise watched him descend the lane. "He learned that from us," she said. "What?" "That wanting something and deserving it are the same argument." Leah did not reassure her. By sunset, they had 9 full market bushels and enough graded fruit still on the trees to fill at least 3 more over the following week. The cider bins held nearly 2,000 pounds. It was less than Leah had projected before the storm. It was enough. They ate cold biscuits under the barn overhang. Owen produced a jar of apple butter from his truck, claiming he kept it there for emergencies. "You planned this," Leah said. "I planned breakfast." Denise spread apple butter on half a biscuit. "Mother would have said this was too sweet." "She made hers sweeter," Owen replied. "She denied it. She lied." Denise laughed. The sound was younger than Leah knew her to be. On Tuesday morning, Owen's truck carried 8 labeled bushels to the regional market. Leah followed the produce manager through inspection, watching him turn apples beneath bright storeroom lights. He rejected 7 for bruising, accepted the rest, and asked whether she could provide more wine saps the following week. "I can provide 4 bushels if the firmness holds. Bring samples Friday." The receiving clerk printed an invoice bearing the supplier name Carter Ridge Farm. Leah read it twice. The first payment would not arrive for 30 days. "Normal terms," Owen said as they returned to the truck. "Normal terms are rude. Wait until a restaurant asks for 90. The cider mill collected the storm drops and lower-grade fruit 2 days later. After collection fees, that sale paid less than the previous autumn, despite better sorting. The market fruit earned more per bushel, but packing materials, fuel, and rejected fruit narrowed the difference. Leah recorded every amount. There was no single check large enough to change the farm. There were several small ones that, together with pasture rent and her home care income, covered the property tax, the insurance, the final barn screws, and seasoned wood for winter. A little remained in reserve. That little felt more dependable than Denise's $15,000 because it could happen again. The harvest stretched over 5 weeks. Leah learned which varieties released easily and which clung until ready. The market reordered wine saps and Arkansas blacks. The Virginia Beauty yielded only 10 saleable apples. Leah kept 1, gave 1 to Denise, and supplied the remaining 8 as samples. The produce manager wanted more the following year. When Owen's cattle left the lower pasture in October, they boarded the trailer without ceremony. The field looked wider after them, grazed short and green. Leah walked the fence line, repaired 1 loosened staple, drained the trough, and renewed Owen's lease for the coming spring. The farm had not become beautiful everywhere. Brambles still claimed the upper orchard. The barn roof remained 7 colors. 1 farmhouse bedroom was closed because Leah could not yet afford the plaster work. The kitchen cabinet still failed to match, but the lane held after rain. The spring supplied clean water, the wood stove heated 2 rooms. The insured barn sheltered equipment and packed fruit. 3 orchard terraces produced saleable apples. The pasture generated steady, seasonal income. Carter Ridge functioned. After the final market delivery, Denise came for supper. Eric did not. He sent a message saying he was busy, then another asking what the last Arkansas blacks had sold for. Leah answered with the wholesale price and nothing else. She and Denise ate stew at Margaret's scarred kitchen table. The green cabinet stood behind them. Denise looked at the paint. "It's close. I know that means wrong. It means close." After supper, she washed, while Leah dried. Neither mentioned that the arrangement resembled family without requiring anyone to pretend the year had been painless. Later, alone, Leah opened the harvest ledger beneath the yellow kitchen light. She totaled market fruit, cider fruit, pasture income, repairs, and carrying costs. The net number was modest. It would not impress Eric. It would not repay every unpaid hour. It did prove the farm could enter winter without borrowing from Leah's next paycheck. She wrote, "First full season, less fruit than hoped, enough to continue." Beside the ledger sat Samuel's Bible. Leah opened the back cover and touched the stretched leather where the deed had waited. She no longer needed the paper to tell her she could stay. On the table lay 1 scarred limber twig she had kept from the final picking. Leah cut it in half. The flesh was crisp, tart, and sweeter than the fruit she had tasted on her first day with Owen. She ate 1 half and set the other beside the Bible. Outside, wind moved through the prune trees. The barn roof held. Water traveled from the spring house toward the farmhouse in the dark, following the line Leah now knew well. When the kitchen light flickered, it stayed on.